of Jahar Tsarnaev in a Watertown backyard. American Manhunt features our own GBH reporter, Philip Martin, to tell us about his own reporting on the bombing and the Tsarnaev trial. All that ahead on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. A federal judge in Boston has ordered Jack Teixeira to remain in custody. He's the 21-year-old member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard who is accused of violating the Espionage Act for allegedly leaking Pentagon military secrets online. NPR's Jenna McLaughlin reports a profile of Teixeira is now starting to emerge.
About a week after the New York Times first reported on the existence of classified military documents circulating on social media, the FBI has closed in on a young member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard serving at Joint Base Cape Cod. Jack Teixeira is the 21-year-old leader of a since-banned private channel on Discord, a popular social media platform for gamers. There, he and his friends talked about Orthodox Christianity, guns, and swapped racist memes. Teixeira is accused of then starting to dump sensitive files to impress the group. His frequent social media use, including on gaming platforms Steam as well as Instagram, has allowed social media sleuths, including from investigative outlet Bellingcat, to retrace his digital steps. Jenna McLaughlin, NPR News.
The Biden administration and the maker of a common abortion medication are asking the Supreme Court to preserve access to the abortion pill. The Justice Department and Danco Laboratories made the emergency request today after a federal appeals court panel restricted access to the pill in some parts of the country. The restrictions take effect tomorrow unless the High Court intervenes. Ukraine's general staff says the battle for the town of Bakhmut may be reaching a climax. The staff is calling this week's battles, quote, the toughest yet. From Kyiv, NPR's Yulian Haidar has more.
Russia has been trying to take the relatively inconsequential city of Bakhmut since last August. The city doesn't have much strategic or economic value to either side, but Russia has exhausted thousands of soldiers and tons of resources to that end. They hadn't had much success until the last 2 weeks or so when they managed to cross the Bakhmutka River and claim the center of town. Ukrainians have been vowing to defend the city to the last inch, even though the UN says 80% of the city has been destroyed. A new British Defense Intelligence report says Ukrainian troops are being forced to withdraw as Russia's Wagner mercenary group lays claim to most of the city.
Yulian Haidar, NPR News, Kyiv.
North Korea says it has successfully test-launched a new intercontinental ballistic missile powered by solid fuel. If confirmed, that development could provide North Korea with a harder-to-detect weapon that could target the continental United States. The report comes a day after North Korea's neighbors detected a launch of a long-range missile from near the North Korean capital. On Wall Street, the Dow was down more than 200 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning with the latest from the GBH Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro. It's a media frenzy right now at the Joe Moakley Courthouse in Boston, where the arraignment of Jack Teixeira took place just a short time ago. He's the Dighton resident who was arrested yesterday for allegedly leaking classified military and government documents on a gaming website. GBH's Soraya Wintersmith was in the courtroom.
Magistrate Judge David Hennessy oversaw the initial appearance that altogether took less than 45 minutes. It was really hard for media to hear in the courtroom. The attorneys weren't all speaking into their microphones at all times, but one thing that we did hear pretty loud and clear inside of the courtroom is that a man sitting in the front row of the courtroom, which is designated for families, said, "I love you, Jack." And Jack looked over his shoulder as he was being handcuffed and responded, "I love you too, Dad." Now there is a crazy large gaggle of media waiting outside the Moakley Courthouse to possibly hear from the family as well as Teixeira's attorney. I'm at Boston's Moakley Courthouse. Soraya Wintersmith, GBH News, 89.7.
And Soraya will be on that story all day, so we can bring you more information as it develops. Former New England Patriot tight end Jermaine Wiggins has been hired as the new head football coach at Brockton High School. Wiggins will be introduced by school officials at a press conference this afternoon at Marciano Stadium. In sports, Red Sox and Angels tonight. First pitch is 7:10. It's now 83 degrees in Boston.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
I'm Henry Santoro, GBH News 89.7.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and Friday from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Maura Healey, the governor of the Commonwealth, is going to be here at 1 o'clock. Hi, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. And since the governor is going to join us from 1 to 2, music on Fridays is usually in the 1 o'clock hour, but some spectacular music, we just heard the rehearsal a couple of minutes ago, is going to be happening at about 11:35. So I would suggest you might consider coming on down. By the way, a lot of people think, as I said yesterday, because of all the marathon construction, you can't get in the library. There are a ton of people here. There's room for more if you want to join us. And by the way, one of the fun things about coming to the library today is not just the wonderful music and Maura Healey. If you have never seen plastic melt, you can actually come here because I think it's at least a comfortable 120 degrees inside.
Well,
it's really quite nice.
It is warm, and at this
You think
point,
so?
well, I think at this juncture we might be able to share a photograph we took of Jim when he was preparing this morning for the show, and he was having a very, very difficult time. There it is.
That's okay, fine. Is that another ChatGPT thing? Thank you.
That's a ChatGPT
Okay,
thing.
we're
going to be daily accompanied by ChatGPT.
Okay, we hope you join us. Again, the governor is here 1 to 2. It's not a typical time. That's why we're going to repeat it regularly. Okay, so the marathon is just 3 days away, as you know, which means you can still decide to run if you start training like yesterday, though you might have to sneak past the security guard or two to make your way into the pack. We're beginning the show with a question to all of you almost rans out there. Every year, the spectacle of the historic marathon, tens of thousands of people pouring into Hopkinton, peeing on lawns, whatever they do out there, the sense of unity, of pride, of a common goal almost makes you want to run yourself. And who among us hasn't glanced upon the look of unfiltered pride and raw exhaustion of runners in Copley and thought, hey, if I get started training, maybe I could actually do this next year, until the feeling wears off by the end of the week or sooner. Our number is 877-301-8970 to call or text. What's the point for you when you decide that next year's marathon is never going to come, that you're never going to run? Is there an expiration date? And the flip side is, if any of you have run either Boston, as a lot of you have, or other marathons and want to share either advice in training or the joy you had in doing the race, we'd love to hear from you. 877-301-8970. You're the day after the marathon.
Yes.
Everybody listening knows this.
If you drive, that's right,
on Memorial Drive or Starro Drive, there are 10
running,
million people
or jogging
on the river.
Or walking fast.
Preparing for next year's. It's a great sight,
That's
actually.
right. Well, I think there are two types of people in the world, Jim. There are those who have become distance runners and get the endorphin high, and they're out there and they're in the little shorts and their little tops, and they're debating which kind of sneakers are going to give them the best run and all that kind of stuff.
We call them running shoes.
And then there are the rest of most people who think that you have to be out of your mind to want to run 26 miles anywhere, and then it's really a terrible idea. And I think that they may be right about that. 26 miles is a long way. A lot of people that have run are big, have a lot of injuries later in their life. But in any case, I think you do get that initial rush.
Can I tell you something? It's not
you're on Beacon Street. You see the young women up at Wellesley College. They're all waving and smiling as you go by.
Yeah.
You think, especially if you're a young man, I could be one of those men running by Wellesley College and have all those young...
Or a young woman, too.
That's right, waving at me. So, you get all inspired.
Well, let me just say, in a rare moment of seriousness, talking about this, I did New York City twice. I never did Boston. Decades ago, if you were to say what are the 5 proudest things you had in your life, I have to say that is right up there. What is the feeling like when you actually cross the finish line? You're not winning the marathon, but was there a sense of accomplishment?
Yeah.
Unlike any other?
Thank God I made it. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's another possibility,
it isn't easy.
too.
But anyway, any case, it's like the gym on January 2nd. You see, if you go to a gym, or I go do yoga, the yoga studio is packed. You can't get in. It's cheek to jowl. And then kind of peters out very quickly, and by the end of January, you're back at your usual amount. I think the gym is the same thing, and I think running is the same thing.
You ever heard of the legendary 92nd Street Y in New York City?
I have.
And I'm raising my right hand. You know how many times when I lived in New York I joined the 92nd Street Y? It's a true story. 8 years. I joined the 80. And you know how many times in total I went to the 92nd Street Y gym? Over the 8 years, maybe 15. It is hard to match the initial blush of excitement with follow-up. So we want to know, if you haven't run, are you going to acknowledge there is an expiration date on your hope, or do you think you are going to do it next year? If you're running today to Monday, we would really love to hear from you. And if you run it all in the past, either Boston, particularly Boston, or other marathons, we'd love you to share your story. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Let's start with Michael in Portsmouth. Thank you for calling, Michael.
Hey, Michael, welcome.
Howdy, thank you. I began running when I was 28. I'm 46 now. I've got to tell everybody out there, no matter how far you think you can go twice as far. Don't give up. You can absolutely make it. Lifetime running is absolutely a thing. Stick with it, guys.
Okay,
No, don't go away. What's it do for you, Michael?
I've always called it moving meditation. I have another thing that I do, and I high-five every runner I see. I call it the High Five Project. I collect data on where I get runs because I'm a sales rep and I'm around the nation. And it's a tribe. Stick with it. It's beautiful. Keep going.
That was a great first call, Michael. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, the thing about running is you don't have to have any athletic ability. It's just just one foot in front of the other. And most everybody, if they don't have any kind of disability, you can do that, right? And then if you find out if you can run 1 mile, then maybe you can run 2 miles. And as Michael said, then maybe you can run 4 miles and just keep going.
Well, and there are also a ton of spectacular disabled runners. I mean, from wheelchair races to, how about also the people who survived the bombing, and how many people have run the marathon after that, despite incredible, talk about inspiration.
To a gentleman in a little while who was injured, actually, and then he came back the following year in 2014 to run again. Gordon in Rhode Island, what do you think, Gordon?
Well, I, like Jim, ran the New York City Marathon once. I wasn't like Jim, who did it twice.
I did.
Once was enough for me.
Okay.
But, I had an older brother who had run twice, and once both in Boston. And I couldn't let my older brother do something that I hadn't done.
Right.
I asked him shortly before the New York Marathon if he had any helpful tip for me. And he said, well, Gordon, what you should do is get a white T-shirt and put Gordon on it so that you can go through the 5 boroughs of New York and everybody will cheer you on and go, Gordon, go.
That's great.
I thought that was about the corniest idea I ever heard. So instead, I got a bright pink shirt, and on my pink shirt, I put Poetry in Motion.
Oh.
Which was pretty good.
Very nice.
Pretty good for a while. Yeah, and I crossed over the bridge into Brooklyn, and people were going, go, poetry, go. And then I crossed over the Queensboro Bridge into Manhattan, and I had one of the worst cramps I've ever had in my life. And they have little stations like the Wizard of Oz where, if you need more straw, they put more straw in, and they rub you down and send you back out on course again. Well, that was fine, and I'm
hey, Gordon, the marathon's going to be over before you finish the story. What's the end of the story? We love you, but come on.
It's coming.
It's coming.
So
okay.
I had another cramp on the east side of New York.
Of course you did.
By the time I'm up in the South Bronx, let's just say I'm not running my fastest speed.
Yeah.
And up there, I hear, but I never saw who said this.
Yeah.
This voice come out, and she goes, hey, I see the poetry, but where's the motion?
That's pretty good. It was actually even worth the wait, Gordon. Gordon, thank you. Congratulations on your one New York City marathon. That's great. Thank you.
Here's Donna, who's watching on YouTube. I feel it is just as important to cheer on the runners as it is to run. So I have made a choice. I will be cheering. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And Debra for Haven says her marathon aspirations expired in 1975.
877-301-8970.
Listen to this one, though.
How come you never ran? I mean, I didn't live here, and so Boston was not a part of my life. You're a Massachusetts kid. Why didn't you run Boston?
Because I wanted to wait until I could qualify.
Oh.
And listen, this person just said, more proud of qualifying for the Boston than getting my degree. How's that?
That's pretty good.
I don't even know what it is now for women. It used to be.
I don't know.
It used to be 3:30. Maybe it's 3:15 now for women to qualify. That's a.
By the way, we should just say one of
clip.
the women who's won this race, Des Linden, is going to be with us on Monday.
Yep.
She's got a new book, and she is great. We've talked to her before in the past, and pretty inspirational. And she's running this year, is she not?
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Kevin in Brookline, what do you think?
Folks, well, I got to tell you, it's the 10-year, and 10 years ago, I was in a hospital in California. My mom was passing away, and the doctor shook my hand and said, we have to put her on comfort care. I don't know when she's going to go. It could be a week. It could be a month. And my phone rang, and it was my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, telling me that her folks were in a terrorist bombing in Boston.
Boy.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And they were, and thankfully, they saved her mom's leg, and they're fine, and so on and so forth. But she's run it 3 times in memory of them.
That is fabulous.
And the last time, she didn't know why it was so difficult, but she found out because she was pregnant.
Oh,
so
gosh.
there's 2 people running. So this 10-year is sort of, it's the anniversary of my mom's passing and the anniversary of them surviving because of the good work. And so you guys have been phenomenal. I used to work for Urban Improv.
This is that Kevin.
Oh, hi, Kevin.
And by the way, banned in Boston with Urban Improv is in 2 weeks, and we'll be back. But go ahead, Kevin. Fabulous organization.
And my wife is a tremendous, her name is Amy Beth, and she's a tremendous fan. And now we watch it in Newton because after her 2 kids, she's done running. But we celebrate them as they come, and we celebrate you guys, and it's a fantastic day.
Kevin, you are a sweetheart, and thank your
you.
wife, too. And it's really good to hear from you, by the way. We really appreciate it.
Here's Aaron in Lakeville. The only thing I run to is the fridge for my next beer. And then Joe from Plymouth. I would rather drive than run the marathon. And this is Sally from Cape Cod. My husband ran the marathon twice. The second time he trained seriously. When I met him at the finish line, he said to me, never let me do this again.
You know, speaking of average runners running marathons, I'm going to not get this exactly right. Alberto Salazar, one of the great marathoners ever. Unfortunately, he disgraced himself with his personal behavior in later years. One of his great lines after he won New York City, maybe 30, 40 years ago, an interviewer said to him, how hard is it to run a marathon in 2 hours and 15 minutes? And he said, not nearly as hard to run a marathon in 5 hours and 15 minutes. And you really think about it, the people who are sort of also rans, but who compete, that's really a test. I mean, that really is incredible. And here you have to be qualified, I guess, unless you're doing it for a charity or something, or unless you were injured or in the past. So there aren't that many of those kind of people. But in other marathons like New York, there are. Can you imagine? 5 hours, 6 hours?
5 hours is a very long time.
Mostly running kind of thing?
Andre from Providence, thank you for calling.
Hey, what's up? How you guys
Another
doing?
blast from the past. Hey, Andre.
How are you,
How the hell
Andre?
are you?
Oh, man, I'm great. How are you guys?
Great.
Very
It's great
good.
to hear from you. What's up?
Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I couldn't run a lemonade stand. So, listen, I don't want to drive 26 miles. The only way you could remotely get me motivated is if I'm chasing a food truck or a mobile brothel.
Okay.
So, that's my 2 cents.
How are you, Andre, by the way?
I'm doing very well. I listen to you guys. I'm working, but I listen to you guys every day.
We love you. We're really glad to hear from you, Andre. Thanks so much for the call. Hope you get to the lemonade stand. 877-301-8097. You know what's also really exciting, I have to say? I think people here would agree. When you're in the neighborhood, when the construction's going up, it started a few days ago.
You get
it is
excited.
well long. It really is a wonderful feel, particularly on a sunny day in downtown Boston.
Let's go to Sarah in Braintree. Thank you for calling.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, this is my first time calling.
Thank you.
And I love the marathon. I ran my first marathon in Burlington, Vermont in 2018.
Oh!
And I had a smile on my face the entire time.
The Lake Champlain Island Marathon, Sarah, was that it? Do they still call it that in Burlington?
No, it was the Burlington Vermont City Marathon.
Oh, they used to call it the Lake Champlain Island Marathon. But anyway, go ahead.
It was an awesome time. And I just felt so excited to be doing it. And then the next year, I raised money for my aunt and uncle who are both treated for cancer at Beth Israel. And I ran the first 11 miles of the Boston Marathon and had to drop out at mile 11 in Natick because I had a stomach bug.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have to drop out along the way, right, with cramps or blisters, or it's tough to. 26 miles is a long way.
It was a long way to run with a stomach bug, and I felt really proud of the money I raised for Beth Israel.
Good, that's great. Well, that's a great collateral plus. Thank you, Sarah. Zoe, our colleague here, says to Kevin's wife, Kevin from Brooklyn, some hope perhaps. My parents both came to running late in life after they had both me and my brother. My mom's run Boston as a bandit a few times, bib for charity also. My father's run 50 miles.
Wow. 50.
They only
Yeah, those are the ultra marathons.
They only started running in their 40s, I think. That is pretty inspirational.
Well, if you start running in your 40s, you'll be less likely to have bad injuries, right?
Why?
Well, because you're not running for as long. I think a lot of people that have started running...
Oh, like repetitive injury, stress?
Yeah, a lot of people have knee issues,
that's pretty
stress fractures, that kind of thing. Sherry in Boston, thank you for calling.
Hey, Sherry.
Hi, I actually wanted to share a story of getting my sister to run her first marathon. So I have done several marathons, and I got her to do the New York City Marathon, and she is much more talented than I am. I made her put her name on the bib in front, and she, at first she was like, I don't know. So going through Brooklyn, people went crazy. Oh, she had an I Love New York shirt on.
That could do
Didn't
it.
even think about it. Yeah, that kind of did. And she's also tall and gorgeous with like a perfect body. So this kind of factors in.
That could help too, yeah.
So that definitely helped with the crowd morale. As we're going through, you hear, go Gina, and to the point that after a while, these people that were running behind us, they said, this Gina chick must live around here. And she was like, all right, I'm glad that you made me wear this. Now, to finish, she kicked my butt.
Well, but you got there, right?
I finished. I still got the medal, but she smoked me.
Sherry, thanks for the great story. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that we have an equal number of people who think that you're crazy to run more than a couple of miles, and others who are absolutely addicted.
Wouldn't you feel like totally, even though neither of us ran Boston, wouldn't you feel totally regretful had you never run a marathon?
I qualified.
Oh, you never told me that.
I did too.
So why didn't you run?
Because I moved to Burlington, Vermont. It was too cold to train.
Oh.
That's why. Anyway, we are done.
No, we're not done.
Do you want to say something before we leave?
Well, I'll say one thing. We're not done. How's that?
Oh, okay. We're moving on.
No, we're not.
We're not?
No.
Oh, we're just taking a break.
Here we are.
I'm on the wrong page once again. Okay, we're taking a break.
Is this live radio, John? Are we on live or is this tape? It's live. Okay,
here's what we're looking for here. We are looking for people that went out there on the marathon, got all excited, got revved up with the crowd, say, I want to do this, I want to do this. And they lasted about a week and a half. That's what we're looking for here.
That is what we're looking for.
877-301-8970. Those who said, okay, I'll try this. But like the previous texter, what I really want to do is run to my fridge. 877-301-8970 is the number. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH broadcast.
Next time on The World, an artist crossing cultures.
What in?
The rapper known as Odyssey honed his craft in the DC hip-hop scene. It was worlds away from some of his family roots.
My father wouldn't conceive being a musician for a living because that is not a viable living in Sudan.
His new album confronts the challenges of being true to your music and to yourself. Sudanese-American artist Odyssey on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and Sunbug Solar, a full-service local solar energy company helping to grow renewable energy in Massachusetts since 2009. To learn more about current solar energy employment opportunities, visit sunbugsolar.com. And the Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame, presenting WazFest, a musical festival curated and hosted by Don Was. Headliners include Dark Star Orchestra, Lettuce, and Steel Pulse, June 23rd through 25th at the Bach Center. More at wazfest.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brody and Marjorie. And we're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Maura Healey will join us from 1 to 2, the governor, for Ask the Governor. And by the way, good news, we just checked. The temperature is down to 118 degrees in the library. Now, this is brutal. For the next couple of minutes, we want to talk to you, or continue talking to you. If you've run a marathon and want to inspire somebody else, or brag, or give advice, that's fine. We're particularly interested in people who are honest about themselves, which is, I'm going to run next year's marathon. No, I'm not. And in fact, I'm never running a marathon. 877-301-8970.
And this is another one of my pet peeves. Maybe we can also weigh in on this. You know, everybody, we talk about the grueling ordeal of running a marathon and the courage of the people out there. I would like some women that have babies recently to tell me what they think is harder. Running
Who's
a marathon.
saying it's harder than having a kid? Who says that?
Because you never hear about the grueling ordeal of childbirth in the way you hear about the grueling ordeal of a marathon, and the courage and the stamina of all these people. We need a little bit of backup for those women that went through these very traumatic births.
And, by the way, a lot of people are texting saying, why haven't you mentioned, Jim, that you proved that you ran both your marathons faster than Marjorie?
Yep.
And Marjorie can provide no proof that she even ran one of the marathons.
Well, I have my trophy.
I had no, you did not.
I do.
I've never seen the trophy. I have paper.
I can't find it.
Did I show you? Exactly. I mean, that.
Okay, here's one. I only run for 2 reasons. One is to last call, and second is from the police.
But I'm pumped. Thank you. Aaron and Wellesley, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Thanks for calling, Aaron. What's up?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, the only marathon I ever did was when I was living in D.C. My wife was pregnant, so I decided I'd do something horrible to myself, and I'd run the Marine Corps Marathon.
Oh, there you go.
So I signed up for it. Yeah, it was something. And so I trained for it by running 3 miles, and the longest run I did before the race was 6.
Oh my God.
No.
I finished.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And at the halfway point, somebody was telling me, this is the point where Oprah Winfrey finished her race, and I was at the halfway point.
So, Aaron, can we go back to your first comment? Was your first comment in part responsive to Marjorie, that because your wife was suffering, you felt you should too?
No, it wasn't. That's not why he called.
I just called in before that. But
oh, okay.
He called to tell us that he only trained and ran 6 miles, and then it was a little bit difficult to add on the other 20, I would imagine, Aaron, right?
It was. There was a guy that passed me on the final quarter mile up the hill, and he had a shirt on. He was about 60, and it said, 25th Marine Corps Marathon, 40th Marathon overall, and I felt kind of bad at that point. But he passed me with the last, 100 meters to go.
Hey, you finished,
then,
Aaron.
At mile 16, yeah,
What happened at mile 16?
There was a man on crutches. He had one leg, and that was the point where I finally caught up to him. So I was not going particularly fast, but
okay.
It was something.
You're an honest man, my friend. Thank you for calling. We appreciate it. That's Aaron, ran the Marine Corps Marathon there.
30 years ago, the general manager of the restaurant I worked at was a drinker and a smoker. At 43, he quit smoking and drinking and ran his first Boston Marathon. So there you go. If you're a drinker and a smoker, you can quit both. And that actually is a way a lot of people do quit smoking and drinking. I first got into distance running because I had a beau at the time who I didn't realize he had a drinking problem. But he would run to get rid of hangovers. So he would have a terrible hangover. He'd run 8 miles or 10 miles or 12. I think he's sober now, but at the time...
Wait a second. How long did you date him before you realized he had a drinking problem?
Well, it didn't go well. About a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's he now?
I think he's quit drinking.
Is that like a Fall River thing?
Fall River, yeah.
Fall River.
Frankie from Winthrop, thank you for calling.
Hey, Frankie, what's up?
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Well, I was going to say I've always wanted to run a marathon, but the 3 times I've ran a treadmill, I've actually fallen off twice. So I don't think any marathon is going to be in my future.
Well, that's honest.
Oh, Frankie,
I'm not that coordinated.
Yeah.
So I like to walk.
Do you like to watch?
So,
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's rather sad.
Frankie, why did you fall off the treadmill twice? Do you think what was going on there?
Well, I think that I have really bad ADD, so I pay attention to all other people and things, and I my feet are, I have size 14 feet, so they flop around like clown feet. So, yeah,
Really?
I just,
Another sad
falling
tale.
off
Okay, Frankie, thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
your honesty.
Size
That's
14
honest.
feet. Those are
large.
Yeah, those are big.
Those
Those
are
are big
large.
feet. No question about it. 877-301-8970. 877-301-8970 is the number to call.
Can I
Or text us
whine
at-
for a second? How come you're not complaining about this?
About what?
About the heat?
I am hot.
How hot are you?
Are
you really hot or just hot?
Well, look at me. I'm
How hot are all you people out there? You hot? You loving it? You're losing weight, so get over it. I mean, there's collateral plus in that too. It is really hot.
Mark
But you
on the
should join
road.
us anyway because Healy's here at 1 and an incredible bunch of performers
This
are
is what
going
you
to join
need
us
to do.
in 5 minutes.
You're like
What?
an impromptu fan. You can go like this with the fan, with the papers. Mark on the road. Thank you
Hey,
for calling.
look who's in the back of the room, by the way. You recognize that guy?
I do. That's Governor Deval Patrick. is it
Governor
not?
Patrick, how are you? Nice to see you, Governor Deval Patrick. You ever run a marathon? You ever wanted to run a marathon? What did he say? What's the right answer? Well, the truth? Not really. Thank
really.
you. Governor, it's great to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. By the way, has anybody looked how fit this guy? This is not our topic, but look at Governor. He doesn't like this. Look at Governor Patrick. It's like 1% body fat. In any case, let's move ahead.
Mark on the road.
You look
Thank you
great,
for calling.
Governor. You really do. Hey, Mark.
Hi. When I was 39, I had been a 2-pack-a-day smoker for 26 years.
Wow.
And I vowed to stop smoking, and then I started running 2 miles a day. This woman at Fresh Pond said to me, Mark, you should buy a new pair of shoes and run the Boston Marathon. I didn't understand that there was a gap supposed to be between those two events.
So what happened? I'm sorry.
On Friday, I bought a new pair of shoes, and on Monday, I ran the Boston Marathon.
No, you did not.
I did. I got to mile 17, and I was in such pain, I decided to walk it in. But it was worse walking, so I ran in, and I finished in 4 hours.
Well, that's pretty
4 hours
incredible,
is not
actually.
bad. So you're a heavy.
Not bad. And then I've run it about 10 times since, getting down to 3 hours and 17 minutes.
Good for you.
Replaced my knee.
That is impressive and a great story. Mark, thanks for sharing that with us. We would not recommend, nor would Mark, that you buy running shoes on a Friday and run the marathon, I assume as a bandit, on a Monday.
No, that's not necessarily a good idea. You need to build up. It's a good idea to build up. But by the way, I saw that Ben Affleck, Matt Damon movie about the
Air?
About Air Jordans.
It's got great
speaking
reviews.
Of running shoes and Nikes and stuff.
Is it good?
It was good. It was a feel-good movie. It's a feel-good movie, Jim.
Didn't you have Odie Henderson on with the critic?
Yeah, he loved it too.
He loved it, right?
Yeah, he loved
really
it too.
loved
It's gotten really good reviews. Rotten Tomatoes has given it really good reviews.
Yeah.
Okay, Don from Salem says, I have been volunteering at the marathon for 15 years. After realizing I didn't want to run the marathon, I just wanted to tell people I ran the marathon. And that's a good one. That's another thing. If you run the marathon, Jim, what can you do for the rest of your life? You can brag to people that you have run a marathon.
Well, you also, if you volunteer, which is a wonderful act of kindness and generosity, you get a lot of good swag. Do you know that?
That's right.
You
do
do
get a lot of good swag. We get some good swag from the mayor. A little backpack.
We did,
Boston
yes,
Marathon
yes, we did.
backpack.
She was very
Lindsay
kind.
from Marlborough, thank you for calling.
Hey, Lindsay, what's up?
Hi, guys. How's it going?
We're
Very
good,
well.
thank you. You got to turn your radio down. Can you turn your radio
So I
down?
walked 3,200 miles across America.
You
on
did?
foot.
What?
You
did?
walked
Walked
across
the marathon.
America?
Why?
For 9 months and 2 days. So I could have actually had a baby at the end of it.
Why?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
We can.
why did you do
Why'd
that,
you do,
Lindsay?
Yeah, why?
Got
to turn the radio down, Lindsay.
Lindsay, you got to turn the radio
sorry,
down.
Sorry, let me go outside of my car.
Okay. You can
All
also
right, now,
turn
can
the
you hear
radio
me now?
down.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I turned the car. Yeah, well, because that was what I
Whatever.
was hearing.
Okay.
now, so,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. So why did I do it?
Yeah, why did you do it?
Because I could, but also a little bit of all the stories of like desperation. I needed to kind of do better in life, so I just started walking across America.
And what was that like? What was that like? I mean, what was that like? I don't mean just the difficulty. Who'd you meet? I mean, what was that like?
So I spent 165 nights in strangers' homes.
Oh my God.
91 nights in my tent on the side of the road. 33 nights in motels, 6 pairs of shoes.
Wow.
And yeah, it was through the South too. And then so it was Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to Lincoln City, Oregon.
Are you like an odd person in life?
That is unusual.
No, I'm serious. I don't mean that critically. Are you strange or no?
I'm crazy. I think that's a better way to put it.
Lindsay, congratulations on
Okay.
that. That is really impressive. Thanks so much.
Okay, a couple more texts.
Yeah.
Dan from New Hampshire says, I've always hated running because I can't stand the sound of my thighs running together. And now I have the moms weighing in saying, Marjorie, so glad you brought up childbirth. Here's one. I ran 6 marathons, Boston 3 times. All 6 were a cakewalk compared to giving birth to my daughter. And then we have another one. Hi, Marjorie. I've run Boston and have given birth. I'm now pregnant with my second. I think running 5 marathons in a row would be easier than childbirth. So there's for the women. Somebody else said down here that they were so tired of listening to when it was mostly all men running marathons, which it was really until
Karen
the
Switzer,
late
right?
60s, early 70s. There weren't many women running marathons. And they wanted to point out the same sentiment because they were tired of listening to the male runners being described as so brave and so incredibly courageous and having worked so hard.
You know, before we leave this, that first text you read, you can't relate to. I know you don't like this because you've never been overweight. I have. The thigh thing is a real serious problem when you're trying to run. Do you know that?
Well,
if you're overweight, that's a real serious
That's what
problem.
Dan from New Hampshire said. He couldn't take it. And I think they sometimes stuck together, too, so that was really difficult for
You
him
have to
as
run
well.
bow-legged is essentially the only way you can get through without horrible rope burn or whatever that kind of thing is.
That's why they have Vaseline,
They
Jim,
do?
so that your thighs could slide off
Yeah.
each other if need
Should
be.
have told me then.
Okay, are we done? I think we are moving on
This
now.
time we
not?
are done.
Okay.
And we have something really good coming.
Yeah, we have some fantastic music for you guys in a second, an unusual spot. Usually we have it at the end of the show. Today we're having it in the morning. An earlier than usual live music Friday performance from Zili Misik. We will be speaking with founder Kara Washington and get a song or two, and you're going to want to hear this. It's right after the break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH from the Boston Public Library, youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News if you want to watch us on YouTube.
Collaboration fosters innovation on May 6th. For more information and to register, you can visit healthsummit.bryant.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie, and we're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Maura Healey will join us at 1 o'clock. She'll be here from 1 to 2. And by the way, you can ask the governor a question directly from the library if you're here, in addition to calling or texting. Moving things around in today's show, as Marjorie said, from our usual Friday schedule, since the governor's here in the last hour, we're bringing you our live music Friday performance a little earlier. The group you're about to hear perform is Zili Misik. Their sound, a blend of music from cultures across the African diaspora. Here at the interview desk is Kara Washington, founding member, vocalist, and percussionist with the group, and Becky Bass, who does vocals and plays one of the most beautiful instruments I've ever seen in my life. This steel pan. Becky, Kara, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
you. Thanks so much.
I feel like I've been listening to you rehearsing all morning, and I feel like I'm in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We are in the Caribbean, let me tell you.
That's right. We might be. He was in the Caribbean as well. Well, let's start with you, Kara. Tell us about the group. How did this begin?
All right, so this band began in the year 2000, and I was living here in Boston and was a part of two incredible bands that broke up at the same time. And one was a Haitian roots music band, Batwel Rada, another one, Chovi Guinée. They were incredible bands. I loved being in those bands. And then I was in also a cover band that was all female. All those bands broke up at the same time, and I needed a place to play music. And a couple of my friends said, you should start a band. I thought, that's ridiculous. I can't start a band. But we, together, were able to found Zili Roots at the time. And what I wanted to do was to combine those ideas. In the Haitian band, I was always the only girl on an instrument, and that was always what people needed to say to me after the show. So I didn't really want that to be the most important thing they said. So if we're all girls, if we're all that problem, women, then please talk about how incredible we play. That's what we want.
Amen.
We want to talk about that. And then bringing together the African diaspora. So in college, I met a Haitian professor, Gerdes Florent, who became my spiritual father, my mentor, and he taught me about the importance of Haiti to the Black world and to the world at large. And so this band also pays respect from those Haitian bands that I was in, roots music bands, and bringing together all these different parts of the African diaspora.
Was that Wellesley, by the way, when you said college? Was that Wellesley?
It was Wellesley College. Yes.
I think I read where that changed your whole path.
Absolutely.
So how did you start at Wellesley?
Well, I thought I was going to be a biologist. This is what I went there.
Okay.
My mother's still wondering, but what happened there. But anyway, I started going to the music department classes and wondering what was missing, honestly.
Yeah.
At the time, there wasn't a lot there that I was that interested in, frankly. But then I looked over to another department where this professor, Gerdes Florent, was teaching. And he was teaching some music of the Caribbean and music of West Africa. And I was wondering, what's the disconnect here? And so he became the first ethnomusicologist in the department there. And I became his first student. And so that's how my interest in ethnomusicology, in Haiti, in actually playing music. I mean, I was playing music before, but never a drum. And I tell you, I had a love-hate relationship with the piano, with the flute, with all these. But once I touched a drum,
that was it.
So, Becky Bass, I'm sure you haven't noticed this. All of you are wearing white. Did you happen to know that?
I wasn't sure.
I didn't think, what's that about? What's that about?
So we are, I guess, celebrating our spiritual. What would be the word?
Spiritual. Well, it's a spiritual color. White is a spiritual color.
That's true.
It's ancestral color.
Ancestral color, and purity, and just how important it is to keep our cultures alive, or our ancestry alive.
You know, you smiled when I said that's one of the most beautiful instruments. That is such an incredible. I mean, do you feel connected to that? I'm not saying every musician is not connected to whatever it is that he or she plays.
Yeah.
That is so incredibly beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you feel that, or are you just humoring me?
No, I do.
You do? Okay, just one.
And maybe just a little humor. No, no, but I'm originally from St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oh.
Yes, so I was born and raised with this instrument. My father plays this instrument as well. So at the young age of 2, he passed it on to me.
That's great.
And so it's a huge part of who I am now. And just like Kara too, I actually had a love-hate with this instrument for a long time, because if your father's like, you will practice and play this instrument, I'm like, no, I want to sing. And so, but now I can't imagine my career without it, honestly.
So tell us about Project Music. What is that?
So Project Music started in 2010, just after the earthquake happened in Haiti. And so that professor I was talking about, Professor Gerdes Florent, he retired from Wellesley. He moved back to Mirbalais, Haiti, founded a cultural center, a school, a healing center, and a holistic healing center. And he invited us to come and we collected a bunch of instruments, and we had workshops there for people in his center. So we collected instruments, we brought them to Mirebalais, we had just jam sessions basically, and then people left with the instruments and they went. And so that was a part of healing for them and healing for us also, like making that connection. So when the pandemic happened, we decided to focus our Project Musique here. We've done some Project Musique in the interim. I'm a Boston public school teacher as well.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So from time to time, I bring in members of Zili to do workshops in the schools with my students.
Aren't you doing something in the summer? We heard. Is that wrong or right? Are you doing something this summer?
Definitely
What are you
doing
doing?
something this summer. So we have a couple of projects that we're working on. Actually, before the summer, we'll be performing at the Nathan Hill. And in fact, Becky's coming there to help us learn something about the steel pan. So we have a new orchestra there, and then Zili's going to come and play, and so we'll do all of that. But this summer, we have a couple things happening. In Malden, we'll be there for Juneteenth, and then bringing Project Musique there.
Can you, in a minute, when you come back, you're going to play in a second with your fellow players.
Yeah.
You got to tell us, how do people find out about where you are and when you are? Is there a website, that kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Could you, before you play, Cara, tell us, can you tell us the names of your fellow players here?
Absolutely. Heron Russell is another fellow Wellesley grad who's here on the percussion.
Hey.
And Ivana Cuesta Gonzalez is here on the drums. We have Estefania Nunez Villamando is there on the keyboard. And we're missing a few people. We have a few people that couldn't join us today.
Well, we heard the five of you. This is plenty.
All right.
So what
Beautiful.
are you playing?
Well, first we're going to play a song paying tribute back to Haiti called Negazibo.
Could you gently put your headphones on the counter there
Yes,
as you
we can.
make it back
Absolutely.
to the... It's Becky Bass, who plays vocal and steel pan, Cara Washington, vocals and percussion, and you're going to hear them play. And then they're going to come back, talk for a few minutes, and they're going to play for us again. It's Zili Musique, and they're about to entertain us. We heard them earlier today, and I really can't. I know I'm overreacting. I just can't get over this thing. It is so incredibly... You can watch this on YouTube or Facebook and check out these beautiful instruments and these really talented players, and here they are.
This instrument actually doesn't come from Haiti, it's from East Africa, from Uganda. But as I said, we like to bring everybody together. Your African walk speaks of the sisters who no longer have a voice, the ones who've had it torn, snatched, conned away, or never knew she had one at all. Your walk tells the tale. The blues, funk, roots, jazzy soul all in one. Go ahead, Africa. Walk.
Just keep moving, yeah. She got the body to move on, walk on. Hey sister, hey sister, hey sister, hey sister, hey sister, hey sister. Negazibo, 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 negazibo. Negazibo, 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 negazibo. Eibo kwamundo, kwamundo. Eibo kwamundo, nafunibo, eibo kwamundo. Z-I-L-I. Z-I-L-I. Zilly, zilly, Z-I-L-I.
Zili Misik. Karen and Becky, can you rejoin us for a couple of seconds before you? That was fabulous, all of you. That was really great. They're returning to headphones.
You know what I was thinking when you were talking before, Kara, about being a Boston public school teacher? What kind of music? I know that's always this, people are always complaining there's not enough music for the kids in the public schools. What is there for kids in the public schools?
I will say that when I first started teaching in the Boston Public Schools, it was through arts organizations. Like I worked for Arts in Progress, which I still miss. Wonderful organization that used to have us come into the schools, a team of artists. But now we have a very robust arts department.
Great.
That is incredibly supportive. And we have lots of arts teachers throughout the Boston Public Schools.
So kids can get a chance to learn an instrument if they want to. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
And in fact, at my school, we have a new steel pan ensemble. So that's an incredible offering that I think every school isn't getting, but many are, and we're really incredibly lucky to have Becky come and work with us.
You know, Kara, staying with you for a second, I don't know if this is within the confines of the work that the band and your colleagues do, but we were reading that you were really concerned about getting a dialogue going about Black history in Boston. And I have to say, over the last few years, I know I speak for Marjorie in this, we suffer regular embarrassment about what we don't know about Black history in this country. You know, it started with Tulsa on the 100th anniversary, and you shake your head. So what's missing here, and what hole are you trying to fill?
Absolutely, thank you for bringing that up. It's something that we started off doing in the beginning of our band, but it's gotten more important during this time, and certainly the dual pandemics over the last couple of years of awareness of each other, coming back together is how we're countering both of those, and a racial schism.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and thinking about the history that we have, we don't know about Black Beacon Hill. That's something that we started in Project Misik to try to combine. You brought up Tulsa. We know about that 48-hour period, but what about that community that created Black Wall Street? How did they create that? And how can we take those lessons today as we try to think about increasing the thriving for folks of color and folks of African descent? And that's really what we're talking about in a lot of the projects we're doing.
Do you want to add something to that, Becky?
Yeah, I mean, just how important, you know, and it's not just Boston. I mean, and there's so much history in this country that is just unheard of. We've never heard. It's been buried so dark and deep that, you know, that it's just important for groups like us and other communities to really bring those back to life.
Don't you think music is the perfect entry point?
It surely
is. For people who are either scared or nervous or embarrassed or whatever the hell they are.
Exactly.
That's part of the reason we're doing. She was talking about other areas, so we're going to Newport, for example, incredible place of Black history there, connecting with Newport, Tulsa, in any place that we can. We're trying to travel there and work with other artists.
So how do we find you people? I mean, what do we do here? Where are you?
So this summer will be many places which you can find on our website.
Which is
ZILIMISIK.
Do that again, please.
ZILIMISIK. ZiliMisik.com. And then we have one for Project Misik too. If you can just remember Project, and then Misik is MISIK, and then you'll find us that way as well.
And we're also hoping to travel a lot more outside of the country, including a tour to New Zealand, where else? Tulsa, Cabo Verde, to spread our music and to spread the message.
Tulsa's still in the country. I just want to be clear.
I mean, oops.
You with me on this, Becky? I mean, just so, no, trust me. I'm a geographical genius.
I was testing
but
you.
There's a lot
That's right. That's right. I do that all the time.
A lot of things going on in Oklahoma right now.
So,
that's true.
While we love talking to you, we really love listening to you.
We're going to hear another
song. What are you going to play?
Yes, we are going to hear another song.
We're going to play one of our songs that we are collaborating with poet Letta Neely on, and this one is called Harriet. It's in progress, and it has to do with that history. We're talking about Harriet Jacobs there, and the time that she spent here in Cambridge. She escaped herself and then wrote about her own history in one of the first books, autobiographies written by a black black woman. Yeah.
We're thrilled to meet you.
Thanks
and
so much.
Thrilled to hear you.
Thanks
and
so much for having us.
being here. Really
Okay, we've been
appreciate it.
speaking with Kara Washington and Becky Bass from the group that Zili Misik. If you want to check out more of them, go to zilimisik.com. That's ZILIMISIK, zilimisik.com. Coming after the new news, we're going to talk with about the Boston Marathon bombing with a GBH reporter, Philip Martin. But before this, we're going to hear another song, and they're going to be ready to go in just a second. GBH investigative reporter, Philip Martin, will be here after the news.
Can I just say one thing while they're getting prepared here? This
Yes.
is an encouragement. It's probably too late for this. Seeing the performers at the library on Friday is even better than just listening to the performers on Friday. It is great watching you five in addition to listening to you five. So that's not me and Marjorie applauding. It's people here in the audience. Join us next week. But right now, Zili Misik.
Poem by Letta Neely. This excerpt about Harriet Jacobs. In this small space, my sleep is filled with heavy rain and dirt, and the heavy rain and dirt is slipping through the cracks in the ceiling from a mountain. And from that mountain, an elder is sitting on a rainforest, twisting magic in her locks. And in her locks, that song she would be singing could not be called music. Even in this small space, they incline ants, and they make me want to dance. So I watch my children. I see my kids. I slumber to dance. I open my eyes and slumber to dance. And I see my kids, and as my mind expands, I'm gonna wait right here and keep expanding my whole mind till I get my kids, and we gonna get up out of here. We gonna get up out of here. Me, freedom, you can't catch me. You can't catch me. Freedom, you can't catch me. You can't catch me.
That was zilimusik.com. Thank you so much for coming in. That was a real treat. As I said before, we're going to be joined after the break for the news with Boston Marathon bombing. We're going to talk about that, a new Netflix special about it. We're going to talk with senior investigative reporter for GBH News, Philip Martin. He's here. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Earth Day Boston, offering events throughout April. You can browse their events page and learn how to reduce your carbon footprint, shift to a plant-based diet, and help address the climate crisis at earthdayboston.org. If you don't see race, you're not seeing the full picture. Don't miss Basic Black, where you'll find insightful conversations on issues affecting people of color. It's Basic Black, tonight at 7:30 on GBH2.
I'm Investigations and Impact editor Paul Singer, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. The artist who created the Boylston Street Memorial to the victims of the marathon bombing and its aftermath, Pablo Eduardo, joins us to discuss the years-long effort to bring the project to the public. Then bombing survivor and president of the One World Boston Foundation joins us. That's the organization whose members work with other survivors of trauma to help them heal.
Media maven Sue O'Connell joins us to talk NPR and PBS Twitter exodus and former President Trump's chaotic interview with Fox News' Tucker Carlson. Then from 1 to 2, Governor Maura Healey joins us at the Boston Public Library for Ask the Governor. Her first 100 days in office, the MBTA, and her first budget are all on the docket. Phone and text lines will be open for you to have your say. 877-301-8970. All that ahead, Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A federal judge is ordering Jack Teixeira, the 21-year-old member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard arrested as a suspect in the recent leak of classified U.S. intelligence documents, to remain in custody pending his detention hearing next week. From member station WBUR, Yasmin Amer has more on the charges Teixeira now faces.
Jack Teixeira appeared in a federal courtroom today in Boston as the judge read 2 charges. First, unauthorized transmission of national defense information, which carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. The other, willful retention and transmission of classified documents. The maximum sentence for that charge is 5 years. Teixeira didn't show much emotion at his court hearing until the very end, when he and his father exchanged I love yous as he walked out of the courtroom. A judge will determine if he'll be held or released on bail at a hearing scheduled for Wednesday. For NPR News, I'm Yasmin Amer in Boston.
Damage assessment is underway in South Florida. Communities inundated with historic rainfall this week. In Fort Lauderdale, authorities are reporting 25 inches of rain within a matter of hours and widespread floods. The Associated Press cites weather historian Chris Burton reporting that Fort Lauderdale ranked among the top 3 major U.S. cities hit with record amounts of rain in a 24-hour period, behind Hilo, Hawaii's 27 inches in 2000. And behind Port Arthur, Texas in 2017. Spending at stores and restaurants dipped 1% last month compared to February. That's according to new data from the Commerce Department, adding to signs of a cool down in the U.S. economy. NPR's Alina Selyuk has details.
One big reason behind the dip in retail sales were lower gas prices. Spending at gas stations declined 5.5% in March compared to February. People also bought fewer cars and car parts, electronics and clothes, and spent less at big box stores and home improvement stores. At the same time, retail spending was still higher than a year earlier, up nearly 3% from March of last year. Spending at restaurants and bars was up by 13%, while spending at online stores rose more than 12%. Inflation is certainly at play. It reached 5% last month, though that was also the lowest level reported in nearly 2 years. Alina Selyuk, NPR News, Washington.
A man from Iowa pleaded guilty to making violent threats against an election official in Maricopa County, Arizona, over the 2020 election. Here's NPR's Kristen Wright.
Federal prosecutors say Mark Rissi left voicemail messages for an election official and Arizona's then Attorney General, threatening to hang them. He mentioned torches and pitchforks. He believed the 2020 election was stolen and wanted Maricopa County to bring charges of election fraud.
That's Kristen Wright reporting. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. As we were hearing, Jack Teixeira, a Massachusetts Air National Guard and a Dighton resident, was arraigned this morning for allegedly leaking classified documents onto a website used mostly by gamers. The arraignment took place in the Moakley Federal Courthouse in Boston, and GBH's Soraya Wintersmith was there.
The complaint against Teixeira is supported by an affidavit from an FBI agent within the agency's counterintelligence division, who primarily investigates counterintelligence and espionage matters. That affidavit and the investigation is what led to the 2 charges we learned of today, one being unauthorized retention and transmission of national defense information, and the other being unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents or material.
GBH's Soraya Wintersmith at the Moakley Courthouse. Teixeira was represented by a federal public defender and is being held pending a detention hearing. Meantime, GBH News has viewed what appears to be Teixeira's yearbook from Dighton-Rehoboth Regional High School. It includes a picture of Teixeira noting his activity with the Massachusetts Air National Guard, along with a quote that says, "Actions speak louder than words." In sports, the Red Sox are back at Fenway tonight, opening a series with the Angels. First pitch is at 7:10. Record-setting Boston Bruins round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs Monday against the Florida Panthers at the Garden. How fitting is it that the Bruins open the playoffs on Patriots Day?
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
83 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Rowdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
We're getting a lot of texts. I just want to say, asking what the name of that incredible performing group was. Zili Misik is the name. Check them out. And again, this website where you can find out where you can find them. Did you say we're streaming somewhere?
Yes,
did you say
did.
that? Good.
I said that, yeah.
Did you say that Maura Healey's here at 1 o'clock?
No, I didn't.
Well, I'm saying it.
Okay.
Maura Healey is here at 1 o'clock. The governor will join us for an hour to take your questions and ours. Tomorrow, as of course you know, marks a decade since the Boston Marathon bombing. As Mayor Wu reminded us yesterday, there'll be a full day of service, volunteering, and remembrances for victims of the attack. With us here at the library is GBH's Philip Martin, who was in the streets doing on-the-ground reporting as the events unfolded and reported from the bomber's federal trial. He's featured in a just-released terrific new documentary on Netflix, which he hasn't even seen yet, Jesus, called American Manhunt. We have, though, the Boston Marathon bombing. Philip Martin is GBH News senior investigative reporter. Philip, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
It's great to see you, Jim.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for coming in. So, Philip, you are featured prominently in this really somber but terrific Netflix documentary, 3 parts, 3 hours, about the marathon bombing. Goes right from the very beginning. Begins with Bill Evans, who was a commissioner for a while. He was superintendent then, who was the man that called off, said to stop shooting at the Watertown scene. Goes right through to the end of the Tsarnaev trial. But tell us about your involvement in the marathon horror.
Well, you know, it's funny. I was not at the finish line. I wasn't even at the marathon the day this happened. I was, but all of a sudden my phone started pinging, like all of yours.
Yes, exactly right.
And within minutes, about 20 minutes, I live in Cambridge, and I made my way to down to Charles Street because Park Street had been closed. Jumped off the subway, started running down the street, Charles Street, ran into people who were bloodied. And they were heading toward Mass General Hospital or anywhere else they could. And it was clear that something catastrophic had happened. Within the hour, a press conference had been called at the Copley. Governor Deval Patrick, others were present at that press conference. And at that point, it was all enigmatic. It wasn't clear what was happening. The city had never experienced anything like this. We had never seen something like this happen at a Boston Marathon, no less. And then it was 101 hours of trying to find the Tsarnaevs.
Yes.
After that, of course, at that point, we didn't know who was responsible, but we knew that something terrible had happened, and the imagery was clear, that of the Middle East, that of other terrorist activities that had occurred around the world.
You know, you did some reporting at the time. We were reading some of your reporting from immediately after the marathon, days ahead. One of your pieces was called In Search for Normalcy. I don't know if you remember it, but what was not just that day, in the subsequent few days prior to the Tsarnaevs, one being killed and one being captured, what was the city like for those who either don't recall, have blocked it out, or just weren't here?
Well, those who don't recall, it was eerie. The city had not been locked down yet. as you know. But it was eerie in the sense that folks were concerned about what might happen next, if anything. The fact that they had not caught anyone was problematic because you're walking around with this enigma in your head, this mystery. Who did it and why?
And is there more to come?
And is there more to come? And also you started finding that people became suspects who had no involvement in this. And some of those suspects had names that were foreign. And then you also had situations where people were also coming together, even before this notion of Boston Strong began to proliferate. You start seeing a lot of cooperation, people talking to each other. It wasn't just suspicion. It was folks trying to rely on each other because you want to know what's happening next, but you also want to be safe, and you're safe in the comfort of, in some cases, strangers.
Well, one of the things I thought was great about the documentary is that it shows the FBI guy, Ed Davis and Bill Evans from the Boston Police Department, Carmen Ortiz, then the U.S. Attorney, trying to figure out what to do next. When they finally got the images of the two Tsarnaev brothers debating, do we let them out? Do we let the public see this and identify them? And there was a back and forth about whether they should do that, which was fascinating. And as you point out, Philip, this fear of, is something else going to happen? Is something else going to come? And you also reported from Watertown, and what you see in Watertown is like a battlefield proliferation of cops in these unbelievably scary-looking tanks riding around with all this battle gear on. Talk about that.
Well, and even let me talk about even getting there. One of the last press conferences was at the Sheridan Commander, right
in Cambridge.
I'm sorry, the Sheridan right here in Boston.
Oh, Sheridan.
The Sheridan Boston. It
Yeah.
was they had moved from the Copley to the Sheridan. You had police, you had FBI, the governor, others at this press conference. That's when the black hat, white hat photographs were shown. Reporters were looking at these photographs and then writing their stories. I finished my story around 10 something, hopped on a bus to go across Mass Avenue Bridge. Crossing the bridge, suddenly I saw these blue lights everywhere, and they were heading to MIT. I asked the bus driver if he could figure out what was happening. He discerned that something had occurred at MIT to a police officer. I was lucky enough to have parked my car near Central Square, jumped off the bus, jumped in my car, got to MIT, and realized that Officer Sean Collier had been murdered. And there were hundreds of cops in the area. Suddenly, another call went out, and the call was about a carjacking, and about a shootout. You're hearing about this. The police jumped in their cars, some of them in plain clothes, some of them in their civilian cars. I joined their stream of cars heading up Memorial Drive to Watertown. Got to Watertown, and you could still hear gunshots in the background. Mike Wilkins, who works at GBH's The World, happened to live in Watertown. He sees me, walks me through the back alleys toward where the shooting was and the noise was taking place. And that's when you hear and realize that there had been a conflict on the streets between the Tsarnaevs and the Watertown police. And at that point, you also realize that Zohar Tsarnaev has gotten away.
Yes, yeah, and that was causing a real panic. And then we have the advice, because he was not found.
That's right.
We didn't know where he was, what he was going to do next. We have Governor Deval Patrick calling for the sheltering in place. You're right, the city was just eerily quiet. People weren't going to work. They were staying in their houses and looking for Zohar Tsarnaev.
And it was really more than advisory in many ways. People stuck to it, and during emergencies, of course, you could go out. Reporters were allowed to go out. We were up and about. But yeah, you were right. It was eerie in the sense that people closed their doors. And there was not everyone was happy about it, but it was considered the best thing to do at that point.
Yeah, cops going door to door.
That's right, cops going door to door. And robots. Robots, by the way.
Robots
Looking underneath houses and looking in houses for possible bombs or anything of that sort.
And we had Commissioner Evans here the other day, who then was Superintendent Evans, who was the one who was the incident commander in Watertown that called off the shooting at the boat in which the younger Tsarnaev was, and without which he would not be alive. And again,
Evans
many
was the
people,
voice of reason.
He was, as he
Yes.
always was.
Yes.
Kind of. But can I just play a little sound? I mean, of the memorable moments, and everybody who lived here or watched it had their moment or moments that are indelibly branded on them. The moment when Barack Obama came to down for that service, that interfaith prayer service, was incredible. Here's a little tiny bit of what President Obama had to say.
When the Sox and Celtics and Patriots or Bruins are champions again, the crowds will gather and watch a parade go down Boylston Street. And this time next year, on the third Monday in April, the world will return to this great American city to run harder than ever and to cheer even louder for the 118th Boston Marathon.
Speaking for myself, I loved what he said. I didn't believe a word of it. I'm serious. I thought the next year it would never be the showing of courage that was evidenced by including some of the people who were severely injured in the bombing itself.
Yes, we always have to get back to those who were killed and those who were injured, including an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah, Martin Richard.
That's right. We have to always come back to that. And one thing I would say about Obama's speech, I think it came from his heart. This is someone who lived in Somerville, went to school at Harvard University, lived in the area for a while. He knew the area, had gone to the Boston Marathons on several occasions, and so on and so forth. I think this came from deep within this man's heart.
Well, I can tell you why it is. There's a great piece that we actually read last night by his speechwriter who wrote it and who, with total candor, talked about how much of it was rewritten in Barack Obama's own hand, including as the plane was landing in Boston, Obama was still writing so he could capture exactly what he wanted to say.
I'm going to give a plug. It's called American Manhunt. It's on Netflix now. It's 3 hours divided into 3 parts. But I learned a lot from this. And, like you, I did a lot of reporting on this, too. I learned this young man, Dun Ming from MIT, whose car was hijacked by the Tsarnaev brothers. They interview him, and he talks about when he asked them, "Are you going to kill me tonight?" And they said no, but he didn't believe him. And how he ran out when he figured it was his one time. He's debating, do I run out of the car, do I not run out of the car? He goes through that whole thing, runs into the gas station. But this is what I learned. When he's in the gas station, they call the cops. The cops arrive. The Tsarnaevs have taken off in his Mercedes, and he tells the cops it has a GPS device in it. And I guess you have some special code to get into the GPS device, which he apparently had in his head. So he gave that number to the police, which enabled them to track the Mercedes right then and find it in Watertown, because they had packed the back of that Mercedes with explosive devices, right? They were supposedly heading off
to New York.
That's right, to do more damage. So that young man from MIT saved lives by having that GPS number in his head.
Indeed. And think about also the familiarity of that area. And part of the Boston Marathon, I think one reason it weighs on us so heavily is the whole notion of familiarity. Places we're familiar with, people we know, so on and so forth. Those 2 gas stations.
That's right Memorial Drive.
The documentary is terrific. I have one issue with it, though, and you can relate to this because you reported on the mother of a guy by the name of Todashev.
That's right.
Who was actually a supporter of Jahar Tsarnaev's during his trial. I think most people know a little more than 2 years before the marathon bombing, there was a triple murder in Waltham that our former colleague Susan Zalkine has reported on brilliantly.
Wonderful work.
And most people who are honest think that the murderers were Todashev and the elder Tsarnaev.
That's right.
And the fact remains it is an unsolved crime, and it is indisputable that if law enforcement had solved the triple murder in Waltham, or at least, in my opinion, shown an interest in solving it, there would not have been a Boston Marathon bombing, because Tamerlan Tsarnaev would have been either in jail or worse.
You hit the nail on the head. There are so many unanswered questions about the triple murder, including the role of Tsarnaev. The fact that he was shortly afterwards able to go to Russia, not just to Russia, but to Dagestan, without being stopped by the FSB, without the Russian Secret Service, without being detained. There was correspondence of some sort between the FSB and the CIA and the FBI. But the question remains, with the suspicion around Tsarnaev, why was he able to go as he would here back and forth in Dagestan, an area that was under surveillance by the FSB, where they were suppressing a large portions of the population?
So before you go, last couple of seconds, how do you think Boston is different 10 years later?
Well, Boston it's still a strong city, and I think people have come together certainly around the Boston Marathon. But like a lot of places, there's a lot of polarization. Much of it stems from this this culture war, as people call it, and a lot of it reverberated nationally.
Yeah.
I think I think there's also greater focus, not just on Boston focus, but I think national focus on now right-wing terrorism, extreme right-wing.
Which you have reported on brilliantly, by the way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that, and there's also concern, of course, with that in mind, that it could happen again.
Philip, you did great reporting, man, and we're
Yeah.
glad to see you now. Thanks so much for your
That's our
time.
fellow
Philip Martin, appreciate it.
investigative reporter Philip Martin from GBH, and he has a big part in this great Netflix documentary called American Manhunt. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank
and
you.
congratulations on all your great work.
You might want to watch it since you're in it. You know what I mean?
I can't believe you didn't watch it. If I was in something,
I'm going to
the
watch it.
second I could see it.
I'm going to watch it this weekend.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
he's very cavalier, very casual about the whole thing. Thank you. In just a moment, in the spot where we are, really at the spot where the first bomb went off, now there stands this gorgeous memorial, and we're going to speak with the artist who made that memorial. He's from Gloucester. Pablo Eduardo is with us next on Boston Public Radio 89.7, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
The COVID emergencies are ending. Masks are often considered a thing of the past. The world seems to be moving on from the pandemic. But there is deep frustration growing among people with long COVID at the lack of progress treating the condition.
We were injured by this virus, and so patients are losing hope. We feel swept under the rug.
That story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Rockland Trust Bank, dedicated to providing advice and support to the community for over 115 years. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And A Blade of Grass, located in Sudbury, offering a wide range of landscape services to the Boston Metro West area, including landscape architecture, construction, and estate care. You can view their portfolio at abladeofgrass.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. The governor will join us at 1 o'clock, 1 to 2, to take your questions and calls. But now we're joined by sculptor Pablo Eduardo, whose powerful memorial to the victims of the 2013 marathon bombing stands literally just a few feet from where we're broadcasting today. Pablo, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for being here. I think we need a mic turned on here.
Oh, we need a mic turned on here.
Okay, I think we're good.
We're good?
Good.
Okay. So, Pablo, tell us how this happened. How did this sculpture come about?
We won a competition that we were invited to take place, and our design won, and we were really glad that we could be part of such a historic event, particularly for me since I've been adopted by this city.
So the design you submitted is pretty close to the design that we have out there?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Okay, so tell us.
There's a long process to design public art, because public art, it's a community that hires you because they want to express who they are
Yep.
or who they want to be, or a memory that's particular to that community. And in this case, it was such an emotional thing with the victims and things. So it was a long process.
So you spoke with the families of the victims and people that represented to figure out what
we had long meetings with the families, sometimes every week.
Wow.
City representatives.
Father Uni, who we greatly admire, Marjorie
John
and I.
Uni from
a great guy.
St. Cecilia's around the corner. Yeah.
He served as a mediator for everybody because sometimes they got pretty emotional.
I'm sorry.
And it's Boston, and then there's the city and the things. And
so tell us how you describe, for people who haven't seen it, what is across the street. We were just over there this morning, Jim and I. We've seen pictures of it, of course, but we work right near, so we've seen it a lot. But for people who haven't seen it, describe what's there now.
Well, there's three. The main thing is the 3 stones for the three people that lost their lives.
Where did they come from? Where did that granite come from, Pablo?
Different places. For Crystal Campbell from Spectacle Island, we went to grab a thing. For Martin, we grabbed it from a park in Roxbury. And from Lindsay Liu, BU gave us a piece of stone from a bridge that they were redoing.
She was a student there, for those who don't recall. Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
It's huge. That is really meaningful.
The best thing about this memorial was the community, everybody took place, right? From the stonemasons, the contractors, everybody was like, oh my God, I'm so thankful you asked me to do this with you because, this was our city and this was our thing. And,
how hard, as an artist, I've read a lot and I've seen a lot of your wonderful work, but this is different because it seems to me the pressure to perform is higher than in almost anything you do because of people's investment in the people you're honoring and the event you're honoring. What was that like for you doing this?
We just had to keep focused. Always remember what we were doing it, for who we were doing it. I think that was easy to keep us in our jobs, right? Because it was such a horrible thing.
Were you anxious before they saw the final product the first time?
Of course.
We have something in common, Pablo. I worked for a Catholic website that the Boston Globe started, all about Catholicism, and it went down the chutes in about a year and a half. It didn't last. Nobody sold any advertising on it. So you talked about being too Catholic. It's not necessarily a sellable thing, and because you've done a lot of religious art. Yeah. So does it make people nervous, or they just don't want it to be too overtly religious, or what's that about, do you think?
I don't know that I'm too Catholic. Perhaps I should be more. But I really love doing saints, for instance, because I love reading about their lives. People that accomplished things hundreds of years ago, people that went into caves.
Yeah.
People like St. Ignatius of Loyola, who they just were really hardworking people, right? And Catholicism, to me, is just a community that I belong to that has certain things that it represents, like hard work and doing good.
So if you do sculptures of those saints, you can pray to them and hope they give you a break, right?
Yeah. St. Thomas More I did for Boston College, and when I got divorced, I prayed to him every day.
Just the pub.
Because he's the patron saint of lawyers.
That's right, the patron saint of lawyers. That's very good. Tell us, I don't even know what the correct word for it. There's
spires.
4 vertical spires.
Yeah, there's spires.
That's what you call them.
Yep.
Describe those for people and why you did it that way.
Well, we used material as symbolic things, right? Like stone, brick, and bronze, which and bronze because you have to melt it and put it into something. And in the spires, the bronze is kind of hugging glass, which is like a very fragile material.
Yeah.
But it lights, and all of Boston, the community, all of us that as that thing that you were mentioning, Netflix, we kept our heads, we remained us. So that kind of represents the fragility of that and how hard it is to not freak out and
Yeah.
and
it lights up.
Which is huge.
Nice.
That's so.
So when you drive down Boylston Street, you see these 4 spires, and they're lit from within.
And they can change color. They can dance. I mean,
it's beautiful.
It was a great idea. We had a big community of not just workers but also artists, architects, glass artists. We worked with Stantec a lot on a lot of projects, so we invited them to take part in this with us.
Before you go, as Marjorie said, we've driven by it, walked by it probably thousands of times. Today we spent a little bit of time just focused. Do you feel as good about it today? I don't know how the mind of an artist like you works. Do you feel as good about it today as you did when you created it? Or are you always thinking there's something different? You know what I mean? You could have done.
You of course, because the nature of being an artist, you have to always become more perfect all the time. So you always say, I should have done this or I should have done. But it's nice sometimes when you come in the evening and it's quiet and it works as intended, which is to be a place of reverence. Right?
Exactly right.
And to mark a place that is, I don't know if I want to say holy, but that is very important for our city. The fact that we took out all the parking in front of it, I mean, that was kind of nice. So in that sense, yes. And the lights, sometimes I wish they were taller, but it's humble, so it's nice.
It's peaceful.
It's peaceful.
I think it's very, very peaceful, and it's achieved that wonderfully.
And all the materials and the colors, I think it works. There's times of the day and people, and sometimes there's trash, and then it doesn't work. But sometimes it's just perfect.
It is just perfect. And Pablo, it's great to meet you, and congratulations years after on your beautiful work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good luck with the Saints.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with sculpture artist Pablo Eduardo. In just a moment, we're going to check in with marathon survivor Dave Fortier, who now heads up this great organization called the One World Strong Foundation. We're going to find that next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.
Boston Public Radio, Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library. The governor will join us at 1 o'clock. If you want to watch what's going on, in addition to listening and you're not here, we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. One last thing, since I have elevated complaining to an art form in my life, and I was complaining that it was 120 degrees in here today, I want to thank both the library and our colleague Lee Hill for getting the air conditioning turned on, and I'm sure the people in the audience want to thank him and them too. It's fabulous. In any case, when he decided he was going to run the Boston Marathon 10 years ago in 2013, Dave Fortier was prepared to never run it again. He was raising money for a friend with cancer. Then at 2:49, as you know, on April 15th, 2013, everything changed for him too. As he ran on Boylston, Dave was hit by shrapnel from the bombs, hospitalized. He actually got, I believe it was a text in the hospital from the BAA congratulating him for finishing the race. He went on to recover, to run again every year since, to do so much more, including founding this spectacular organization called One World Strong Foundation, which helps connect victims of terrorism and intense trauma with resources and a much-needed sense of community and belonging with other survivors of such things. Dave Fortier, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming in. So Jim mentioned that you ran in 2013, which of course was the year of the bombings 10 years ago. But elaborate on that. Tell us, you came right around the corner and came down Boylston Street.
Yeah, you guys say run. It was more of a jog.
Jog, okay, that's okay.
But the plan was that I was going to stop at the top of the street before you come onto Boylston, see my family, say hi to the girls, my 2 daughters, and take pictures. I was so tired by the time I arrived at the top of the street that I figured if I stopped, I wouldn't start again. So we had some great training from Dana-Farber, who I was running for at the time. And at that point of the day, I was just going lamppost to lamppost just to get through. And just adjacent to marathon sports, I was about to go around a gentleman. You go around people, and people go by you all day long. But just as I was going by, that's when the first bomb exploded.
How did that experience? I'm sorry.
And you felt it?
Very, very, very much so, yeah.
Yes, because you were injured.
Yeah.
What happened?
I didn't even know at the time, but I had shrapnel go through my shoe, my foot. And I was pushed sideways, and I remember being helped by somebody and then turning around and seeing just the devastation, what it had done to people. And then some seconds after that, the second bomb went off. And I remember I could see it, I could feel it, but I couldn't hear it, just ringing. And then soon after that, there was this fear of how many more of these are there. My kids are on the street, all these other people, what it's doing to them. And that's when I looked down and I could see there was blood forming around my foot. There was a hole in my shoe that just didn't make sense, and then everything started to come back into real time.
So how did that horrible experience for you and others lead to the creation of One World Strong Foundation, which, by the way, you're going to want to check out. It's oneworldstrong.org. How did that evolution happen?
It really, I felt like I was at the start of Boston Strong when it happened. I've heard a couple of people speak here today, and I was watching people run in to help. No concern for themselves, just going to help, both first responders, people that were on the street. It really was amazing to see. And the city did such a great job of bringing the community together. We don't see this in a lot of the other cities that we work with. Everything kind of gets marginalized. But the city of Boston, Mayor Menino and the team, they really brought folks together. And it made such a difference because we had a chance to connect. And for many of us, that connection really started when we were visited in hospitals and rehab centers by veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars that had similar injuries to ours. It's the Semper Fi and America's Fund. They pushed us forward, helped us. They were there for us every step of the way and still are. We'll be with them tomorrow, tonight. It's become a homecoming here.
Is it a practical thing, in one sense, give you advice on if you need to do reconfiguration of your house, or just a psychological thing where someone's been through what you've been through so they can, what's it about?
So the foundation's about connection, building resilience. That's what we based it on. It's turned into a little bit more than that, and we can talk about that because now we can actually start to prevent things from happening. But the ability to connect with people and to help them to understand what they need. Yeah. And we work with people around the world doing that now. We've been very connected with our State Department through embassies. Wow. And we work with Homeland here in the U.S. through targeted violence and terrorism prevention.
And by the way, the first, if I recall, was it the Pulse nightclub in Orlando? Was that the first where, what was it, you and 9 others, on that right?
Yeah, I was in Chicago at the time, and my phone just lit up like a Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. It was folks here in Boston saying, how can we get to Orlando to help those folks like the veterans came and helped us?
And when you decided to go, did you say in advance what I'm going to do, or you just felt that was where you should be, and you sort of did what felt right? I mean,
we were doing what felt right. And we had started doing some of that connection, and there were 9/11 families that had reached out to us. There were Newtown families that had reached out to us.
Wow.
And you immediately see that connection. It actually happened here this morning. I was meeting with a survivor here this morning in Boston. I was talking to a police officer across the street from Philadelphia who heard what we're doing. We're connecting with them as well around prevention. It's many different levels to how it works.
When you've mentioned prevention I understand totally I don't understand totally. I understand from reading the incredibly important work you're doing after the fact. How does prevention come into play?
Well, we realized along the way that stories can make a difference. And not only survivor stories that what people have been through, those connection pieces, but stories of formers. Families that have lost loved ones to movements, left, right, Al-Qaeda, right down the road. Those stories can play an important role to help get somebody out of something as well. And if we can stop something from happening, we'll never know. But you can't really put your head on your pillow at night without giving it a try. And that's what we do.
You know, everybody's different. Everyone heals differently. But I wonder if there are some common things that those of us who've been lucky enough not to experience this trauma should know about what trauma survivors go through.
Sure. There's the easiest answer to that is there's no one path.
Yeah.
There's several. And it's helping folks figure out what those are for them. Their background comes into play, their work comes into play, all of it does. And it's that understanding that comes, and we learn that from the veterans that came to visit us. I remember talking to them about, why do you do this? And they said, it helps us to help others. And it was that click. Wow. And to your question, Jim, when we were in Orlando, we were meeting with people. Some of them didn't speak English, but there was still that connection that was happening. And leaving Orlando, I made the decision to volunteer to an organization that does this. We were just a ragtag group of people, just a great group of people trying to help others. And we couldn't find an organization that works without regard to race, religion, ethnicity, color.
So let's create
politics. I didn't want to create one because I've already started something and have been down that road. So, but we couldn't find one. And so in 2018, we went out and did that.
You know, you're like a Zen presence, I should say. You really are. No, I'm saying, I mean that in the most complimentary way. I'm relaxed, which I never am. Were you like this before, or were you a different
I would
person?
I would have avoided this setup like the plague.
Is that really true?
No, it was, yeah. It was. I was going to be one and done with the marathon.
Yeah, right.
I was running for a friend, and I got caught up in trying to help, and that's how I ended up here.
What's ResilienceNet? What is it?
So it's a mobile application that we started putting together. The idea was in 2019. So before the pandemic, I was on a State Department trip overseas. I had a chance to see a refugee camp, and one of the first things I noticed was a cell tower. That's a refugee camp. And I also saw people walking around like we do here. They had phones, and thought, okay, there's a way we can connect. We don't have to travel everywhere. And that was one of those awakenings to how do we do this? How do we get what we're trying to do into the hands of more people? Because again, it wasn't about just doing things here in the States. It was about helping globally. And
so you came back the year after Boston in 2014 and ran again. What was that decision about and the experience about?
Again, it was more like a jog, but no, it was it was fantastic. Actually, there were several of us in rehab at Spalding, folks that had similar injuries, and I remember because it was the day that the Boston Athletic Association. We could do a whole show about the great things that they've done, but they had sent out an email to the survivor community in Boston saying, please come back and run. You can give this entry to somebody else. You can do it yourself.
Oh yeah, didn't they give you 2 entries?
They gave us 2 entries.
Pretty great.
Well, it was great, and I thought it was wonderful. But I had that was the first marathon that I had trained for, and that was not a pleasant experience for me.
Yeah.
So, but then I was kind of known as a runner in the group, and people started asking me questions, and I'm not the guy you want to ask running questions to. So we went out through Dana-Farber, connected with Jack Foltz, who was the trainer for Dana-Farber. Jack helped train people. Dave McGilvery got involved, who I'm sure you all know.
Yes.
He is one of the greats.
He is one of the greats. And the BAA was involved from the start for this.
Before you go, obviously people who've experienced what your experience are not only welcome, but encouraged to participate in your work. For those of us who are lucky enough, as Margie said, have not, how do we help oneworldstrong.org there?
So in this past week, with some of the shows like you're doing and others, we've actually received a bunch of inbound calls.
Oh, great.
As well as email. And I met one person here today that we didn't know that was actually impacted here in Boston, because a lot of it is survivor guilt with people. They felt others were much murdered, but they've been dealing with that for 10 years. So folks that reach out, we can help. Doesn't matter where they are in the world.
I assume you can always use a few bucks. Is that?
Bucks helps as a foundation. Yes,
okay.
Hence the not wanting to start something else, but yeah.
Dave, what's the website for people that want to get in touch?
oneworldstrong.org.
It's very easy to remember. oneworldstrong.org. Thank you so much for being
Congratulations.
here.
It's really
Thank you.
fabulous.
Congratulations. It's great work.
Thrilled to
We've been
have you.
speaking with Dave Fortier. He's the president of the One World Strong Foundation. The website to get in touch, participate, oneworldstrong.org. Thank you again for being
Thanks,
here.
Dave.
Coming up in just a second.
A new poll shows a surprising number of Massachusetts residents are thinking about moving elsewhere. I'm Adam Riley. This week on Talking Politics, we'll examine why they might leave and what Beacon Hill could do to make them stay. Plus, the town of Lee is about to become a case study in direct democracy. We'll look at what's gained and lost when everyone has a say in government. Join me for Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2 and online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Jane Fonda, Van Jones, former Ukraine Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, and Dr. Lori Santos of the Happiness Lab. Info at bostonspeakers.org. And Native Plant Trust. You can welcome spring at Garden in the Woods in Framingham, opening Sunday. Visitors can discover the beauty of native plants in a naturally dramatic landscape. Details at nativeplanttrust.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. In exactly 14 minutes, the governor will join us for Ask the Governor, Maura Healey. So our next guest is going to talk really fast. Here to take on the social norms and abnormalities of the day is media maven Sue O'Connell. The Maven is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News and contributor to Current on NBCLX and NECN. Hello, Sue O'Connell.
Good day, good day.
Good day to you.
So the last time I was rushed was because Andrea Joy Campbell, the AG, was here, and we wanted to talk about the royal family for my 14 minutes.
We did.
So we're going to do that, Jim.
Yeah, that's right. We're
Okay.
going to talk about the royals. But before we get to the royals, Judge Clarence Thomas of the United States Supreme Court is in even worse shape.
Really? Do you think?
Yeah. Well, we already know that he was taking trips, $500,000 trips with this billionaire Harlan Crow, not reporting those things. His wife was very much involved in the election fraud, emailing and texting people that were close to former President Trump. Now we learn that this same guy, this Harlan Crow, brought property.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's better than that.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
All right, so first of all, we all need a friend like Harlan Crow. I think I want to make sure we take the best pauses. And I don't know if you've ever, I know you have, when you meet really wealthy people and they give you advice on stuff, it's always about one click away from being illegal, right? Like when we purchased, I'm telling you, it's legal, but what's the loophole? How can we do it so that it doesn't get us in trouble, but it benefits you? I want to help you. When my business partner and I bought Bay Windows and the South End News, the first thing they said to us, where should we incorporate? Delaware, right?
Delaware,
okay. But we didn't do it. What else should we do? Cancel all your contracts and tell everybody that you're not going to pay. There's always these ways to do it. And this rich guy, it looks like Clarence Thomas was in a bind, right? He had his house with his wife, and his mom lived in it. And it's
Savannah, right? Is that where it's
in Savannah, Georgia. And it didn't look like it was worth very much.
Right.
And this rich guy, his friend, swoops in and buys the house for what, $130,000?
Yeah, it was $133,000.
And then his mother gets to live in the house. And not only does his mother get to live in the house, they then remodel the entire house for Clarence Thomas. I mean, isn't that a great guy?
But he did report it at least.
Oh no, Jim, he did not. Now that's really the rub. The rub here is that whether or not you think that it was a good thing or a bad thing for one of our future Supreme Court justices or a justice to be engaged in this sort of mishigas with a really wealthy guy, he didn't disclose it. And he's required to disclose it because he wasn't living in the home. He probably should have disclosed it anyway. And so what ends up happening is a Supreme Court justice gets basically a gift buy from a rich guy who then proceeds to remodel the home and take care of Clarence Thomas's mother. And what's even more enraging is that Clarence Thomas claims he didn't know he had to. I mean, what does he know about the law? Let's just say he is only a Supreme Court justice, right? So why would he know what the law is?
Also, this guy, this Harlan Crow character, is extremely interested in judicial matters, legal matters, and with all this time he's spending with Clarence Thomas, I think it strains credulity to not to think they were talking a lot about judicial matters and legal matters.
Well, not only that, but you can imagine that Clarence isn't very good company. Right? So if you're going to spend a lot of time with Clarence Thomas, you want to be getting something.
Well, a couple of things. One, I would like to say for the record, I know I speak for Margaret, we know one or two relatively wealthy people who are relatively honorable. I want to make that totally clear.
That is very true.
We will not name names, but it happens to be true. Having said that, this, I think, is a huge test for Roberts, the Chief Justice Roberts in the Supreme Court. I don't use this term without care. This is a corrupt justice on the Supreme Court. This is, by the way, is ProPublica again.
Broke the story.
Broke the story.
Yep.
This is what we know. We didn't know about the sale yesterday. We'll probably find out something tomorrow. This is clearly in violation of his response. It's a totally clear issue. And by the way, he declared it as an asset. He knew he had to do that, but then he chose not to disclose the fact that he sold it to a zillionaire. And this is, if he doesn't resign or is forced to resign, and this other BS, I'm going to get it out of my system, when he said about the plane and the private yachts and whatever, I spoke to other colleagues, and they said it was perfectly legal. Who are those colleagues, Justice Thomas? Why don't you disclose that so we can find out if that is the advice you got, which you did not. He's either got to resign immediately or Justice Roberts has got to grow a couple, if you'll excuse the expression. And well, that's up to, and essentially say that I care about the integrity of the court and look to the side. This man is damaging the credibility, integrity of the Supreme Court of the United States.
And this is a clear smoking gun, which is what the other mishmash is not. He was required to disclose this. It was, and we
There's no
said
dispute.
Last week, our Supreme Court justices are under less scrutiny than I am as an NBC employee.
Totally true.
Right? So I have to fill out, if I have lunch with somebody or if I'm friends with somebody who's running for office, I have to disclose it. And then my bosses decide if I'm going to cover those stories or I'm not going to cover that story. The fact that I am under more scrutiny than Justice Clarence Thomas should be worrisome to all of you.
Okay, Sue O'Connell, and Roberts is supposedly the guy that's so worried about the reputation and integrity of the court. Why hasn't he said something already? I mean, it's just
he has to say he has to say something and do something. I mean, that's it. I mean, he can say whatever he wants or not say it, but action. I
don't know what he can do.
They can move to impeach. I mean,
he can't impeach.
He can't.
The Senate
can move. To
but he could agree that there be what Nancy Gertner said was 1,000 times some formal oversight and ethics panel that has teeth that relates to the Supreme Court.
That doesn't exist at the Supreme Court right now. That's the other point that should be shocking to you.
Something like he needs to go.
He could.
He could do something like that.
Which he ain't doing.
And he hasn't done it. And
well, not only has he not said he hasn't had to go, he hasn't even voiced any concern about this unethical behavior. In any case.
He was beside himself over this leak on the abortion decision. Big investigation on this leak, which got them nowhere, by the way.
And it was not a big investigation
It was not, yeah.
No, and they treated the justices with kid gloves. I mean, it was really just, they really didn't even quiz the judges in any great length, or any length at all. So it just shows how...
If they had only posted it on a gaming website, then maybe we would have known who the leak came from.
Now, Tucker Carlson, who's called the former president demonic and disgusting and said he hates him with a passion, nonetheless sat down with him for a long interview. That would be the former president, Donald Trump, down at Mar-a-Lago. So I just wondered, there was something that struck me about this interview. I mean, it was a total softball interview, but beyond that, did you notice the placement of the chairs? How they made Tucker Carlson look a lot bigger than Donald Trump?
No, I didn't notice that, but now that you mentioned it, I do.
Trump must have been upset about that later on when he saw it, because the Fox cameraman, I would guess, did that on purpose. But anyway, what was your takeaway?
Well, in the words of Logan Roy, he's not a serious person, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
I mean, when you put Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump in a room together and you end up believing Donald Trump more than you do Tucker Carlson, I think that's where we are. Tucker Carlson, in this Dominion lawsuit, along with these other Fox entertainers, are saying one thing and acting another way, and how he can go into this interview and expect that the viewers, which they may because they're only getting their information from Fox Entertainment, or news as they sometimes call it, it's just an amazing exercise to me.
Two things. One, the audience wants to thank you for not referencing the late Logan Roy, because that would be giving away something that we don't do.
It's in the name of the show,
on the radio.
people.
Secondly, here's a little bit of what this is almost like a movie. Here's Trump with Marjorie's favorite, Tucker Carlson, recounting his arraignment in that courthouse, specifically how he was treated by the staff at the courthouse, which, by the way, is also a prison in a sense. Here is Donald Trump.
When I went to the courthouse, which is also a prison in a sense,
exactly,
they signed me in, and I'll tell you, people were crying. People that work there, professionally work there, that have no problems putting in murderers, and they see everybody. It's tough place. And they were crying. They were actually crying. They said, I'm sorry. They'd say, 2024, sir, 2024. And tears are pouring down their eyes. I've never seen anything like
I've never heard anything like it.
Yes.
2024, sir. And by the way, they were crying so much that we saw the video of the court officer slamming the door in Trump's face.
And the interview with the court officer who said no one was
No
crying.
one's crying.
I don't know
No,
what he's
good for-
talking about.
It's just like a total
But he
looking
says that
glass.
all the time, that Ron DeSantis was down on his knees begging him
Right.
to endorse.
Listen, he's a great storyteller, and I gotta
Romney's
tell you,
begging, everyone's begging.
If
and
I was going to
crying.
get paid what Tucker Carlson gets paid, and I had an hour to just sit and let Donald Trump talk, I don't get paid by the word.
What does he get paid?
I don't know, a lot more than me. And
Millions.
I would
He probably
disclose it
does,
if I
yeah.
knew.
I'm sure you would.
Millions of dollars. So
You know what I love? One of my favorite things that Trump does, one of his speech things that I love, is when he said in this thing with Tucker Carlson, 2024, sir. He always refers to people calling him sir. He obviously loves that kind of thing, and it's. Did you see Saturday Night Live? Oh, you sent it to me.
Yes, it was very funny. The opening of Saturday Night Live on night before Easter, when they had they had the Last Supper, and then they had Donald Trump coming out comparing himself to Jesus. In a way that was pretty funny. If people haven't seen it, you can get it online.
He says at the beginning, both very popular, both Americans, both whatever.
Both white Americans.
Both white Americans. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, Sue O'Connell, we are an NPR-affiliated station here in Boston. NPR has quit Twitter after being falsely labeled as after Twitter put these underneath tweets called stuff from NPR state-affiliated media, which is not true. WBUR, our sister station here in Boston, also an NPR station, they have left Twitter as well. We haven't left yet.
PBS left too, by the way.
PBS left.
Yeah, it's a long line. So should the rest of us all be leaving, or what do you think?
It's so depressing. I find the whole Twitter thing to me is just so personally depressing because it's just ruined my life. The only joy I really had. I feel like I had finally gotten the hang of Twitter by 2019.
The only joy in your life?
I would I had curated my lists. It was like my own newswire. I was like, I had a whole
Oh, wait a second. Your daughter Ruby's online. She said she just changed the locks. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So what are you saying?
Twitter? I'm like around my house. I'm the one on the phone. I'm the one that gets yelled at. It's such a mess, and Elon Musk has just become so disappointing as a business person and someone who people who know him personally say at one point he was really invested in saving the planet. Like you
can say he's horrible, and he has done amazing things.
The moving forward of the electric vehicles, you could say what you will about the rocket stuff, but we needed to work on those, different power. There's a million things that he's been doing and always thinking about ways to improve the planet. And as they say in improv, and he has taken this horrible hellscape called Twitter that some of us actually enjoyed. And I was thinking what it's like, why am I still on Twitter? I'm not engaging as much as before. I'm not seeing people that I want to follow posting because people have stopped posting. So it's kind of like, when your kids were like toddlers and they would walk around and take your restaurant order.
Yeah.
Remember, they all pretend to be waiters. And they'd say, what do you want? Do you want a Diet Coke and an ice cream soda? And you'd say yes. And they'd come back with a water and go, here's your sake.
That's right.
And that's what it's like, Elon Musk running Twitter. He's announced now that we're going to have more characters. Well, are we really? I still have my blue check. He said I wasn't going to have it anymore.
You do still have your blue check?
Yeah, I don't know why. And he says now 420, code 420, is when we're all going to lose our blue checks, our legacy blue checks. Is that really going to happen? It's like living with a toddler.
Isn't there room for some other tech genius to come in and fill this void?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe create something, I don't know, Truth Social, or something like that.
I mean, there are
That's
other. There's
doing well.
Mastodon. There's
People complain
News
about
that's
them
up that
not being as good.
Well, it's just sort of. Kara Swisher says this all the time on all of her podcasts. Maybe this was it. Things come and go. MySpace came and went.
Yeah.
Sears was here and gone. Maybe
Sears.
Twitter is it, and we're just going to see what the new thing is.
I love Sears.
Yeah, I don't know if people should leave or stay, but it's there's no one place for me to go to get all of my news that I get from all of the news sources I have, but there may be soon. But I'm just not doing it as much as I have.
Can I just say, you got to give it to NPR. It's a loss, because that is a major connection to millions of people. And I'm
not sure that it is.
I think it's a huge
I think it's
loss.
a loss for the reporters and for the content creators, but I'm not really sure. When you look at the statistics,
Not that many people are on Twitter.
A lot of people don't click all the way through. But if you're branding yourself as a reporter, an opinion person, That, I think, has value to it, but I'm not sure that it pays off as much, especially since people are leaving it.
Do we have time to ask about the anti-vaxxer?
Well, is the governor here? No.
I don't think so.
If the governor walks in, we're going to interrupt you in between.
I'll fill.
All right. So RFK Jr., the son of the late Senator Robert Kennedy.
I'm sorry,
RFK
I'm not
Jr.
familiar with him.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's a big anti-vax guy. Who was kicked off social media for lying about COVID on social media. His own family has called him out and disassociated themselves with his wacky opinions. But he's running for president.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback from, what did you say, Green Bay Packers?
Green Bay, maybe the New York Jets.
Yeah, Green
we
Bay
don't
Packers, who lied about being vaccinated when he wasn't. He apparently is.
Oh, that's a good point. I forgot. And he lied about being vaccinated.
He said he was immunized.
Right.
And then when he actually got COVID, then he had to backtrack and admit that he had been unvaccinated and lying about it to his fellow teammates. But in any case, I mean, I don't think he's going to get far. Do you?
Well, here's the thing about RFK Jr. First of all, he once, I interviewed him about the book he wrote about his cousin, who he said was innocent, and he wrote a really nice inscription to me on it, and now I can't show anybody.
Is that really true?
Yeah, because I actually read the book. And
that's the trial.
Yeah, so I'm going to frame
killed
it.
the teenage girl.
Yeah, when I give money
16
to
years
Clarence
old
Thomas, I'm going to frame it and put it up in my. Kidding. You know, he's going to get a lot of traction with libertarians.
By the way, I covered that trial, and I thought he did it.
You thought he did it?
Yes, I did.
We're talking about Skakel, not RFK.
Yes.
Michael Skakel.
Michael Skakel. He's going to get a lot of traction with libertarians. He's going to get a lot of traction with people who are sort of anti-government, but want to still be invested in the process. His wife is Cheryl Hines from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Who has criticized them too.
Right, who has thrown a party for their kids and said you had to be vaccinated to go.
That's right, I forgot about that. That
and
was
she
good.
said, I don't know. But
great.
she just recently said, I support him. I'm sure he has all the tools that he needs to get where he's going to get a lot of attention, like he is like from Aaron Rodgers here. The question also becomes, remember, the Democrats said they're not going to New Hampshire. Right? They're not going to invest in a primary. But now there's a primary. There's going to be Marianne Williamson, the self-help author, Robert Kennedy Jr., and at some point, Joe Biden. So the sort of inside baseball here is, will we watch the Democrats fight over whether or not there will be a New Hampshire primary, and what cost will the New Hampshire people pay if they do it?
Well, one quick second. Maybe I misunderstood you. But Joe Biden is not going to put his name on the ballot in New Hampshire.
Right. But it's still, there will be a Democratic Party
penalty. Right.
Penalty for them if they do have it. And and then the other issue is, I heard a bunch of Free Staters saying, and libertarians in New Hampshire saying, wouldn't it be great if it was a Trump-Kennedy ticket? Finally, they wouldn't have to be worried about JFK Jr., who they think is alive. They actually would have a live Kennedy that they could trot around.
That's a beautiful thing. Now, Sue, let me tell you, we love talking to you.
Oh,
Having
am I
said
getting
that,
cut off again?
I believe you are getting cut off. Can we hear it for Sue O'Connell, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We love our media maven.
Don't take it personally.
But when you're the governor, we'll preempt you ever sitting there.
I was just about to get into the royal family.
That is the governor, I believe, yes. We'll do the royal family next time. Thank you.
Sue O'Connell is co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, a contributor to Current on NBC, LX, and NECN. Sue, thanks a lot for coming in. We are going to be joined in just a few seconds by Governor Maura Healey. She's here for an hour of Ask the Governor. You can call or text your questions, 877-301-8970. Governor Maura Healey is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming, if you want to see the governor, at youtube.com/GBH News as well.
Local news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. This week marks Governor Maura Healey's first 100 days in office, so we're bringing you a special hour of Ask the Governor on Boston Public Radio. That's why today we're broadcasting on our usual GBH 89.7 FM Boston, and also live on CAI on Cape Cod, and on the website of New England Public Media in Springfield as part of our collaborative GBH, CAI, and EPM reporting effort. Have your say, Governor Healy's agenda. If you want to get your question through to the governor, you can call her at 877-301-8970. Text her at the same number. Governor Healy, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Governor Healy.
And great to be at the Boston Public Library.
Isn't it great?
Particularly on this weekend when we're kicking off Patriots Day and the marathon, and it's just really exciting down here, all that's happening.
Well, we have done a lot about the marathon today, obviously, because it's going to be on Monday and we're right at the finish line. But I'm wondering, where were you when you heard about the bombing, and what's your takeaway 10 years later?
Yeah, I was home. I was home when that happened, and just remember sort of then immediately we all went into lockdown. Remember, and just the next hours, what became a few days. What a horrifying time and experience, and it's a special weekend this weekend as we commemorate the anniversary, as we always do. The stories of resilience, the survivors who are running every year. Survivors are here, running. Some of them, but I think it's an important time for us to respect the significant grief and loss experienced by so many, grief and loss that people continue to experience today, while also using this as a moment of affirming the human spirit and the resilience, and also the unity. This was a time where our city, our state came together in incredibly profound ways, and there's a lot of service associated with this week. And my message to all, I guess, would be, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could find a way to harness that unity and that common purpose and that collective work together to confront and deal with some of the very real challenges we face in our time. That's my hope coming out of this weekend.
On a semi-related note, someone told me you were an athlete when you were younger. I don't know if you've ever talked about that. Do you run? Are you a runner?
No.
You're not?
I like 90 feet. That was a link to the basketball court. And then I also played soccer, so you ran a little bit more. As a general matter, I'm not taken to running. I did do the Boston half a few years ago.
That's a long way.
Serious running.
That was fun, and we'll see. It'd be good for me to be running more. I should get back out there.
You're the governor. Won't you be putting on the crowns at the finish line this year?
I am very lucky. Yes, on Monday I will be right next door, crowning the female winner.
That's great.
We're standing alongside Mayor Wu, who'll be crowning the male winner. But always such a super exciting day. Yes. Just a day that you can't help but leave feeling better about the human condition.
Yeah.
Before we get to the calls, 877-301-8970. In addition, text the same number. And if you're at the library and would like to ask a question, is Aiden in the neighborhood? One of our colleagues will be at that little table in a minute if you want to ask a question directly. This is a really clumsy segue, but I got to get it out of my system. So, first thing he does is rule on a case where his wife, it turns out, is involved in an attempt to overturn a Democratic election. Then we learned from ProPublica a couple of weeks ago that he's taking $500,000 trips on private yachts and private jets and not reporting them. Then we wake up this morning, also ProPublica, brilliant reporting, to find out he sold property, his mother's house, some property he owned in Savannah, Georgia, to the same billionaire, with clearly violating the requirement that he disclose, which he did not. Is there any reason why Clarence Thomas should not be urged to resign from the Supreme Court?
No. I mean, I
should he resign?
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's the height of hypocrisy. You're there, you're supposed to be administering the law, right? Making people play by the rules and follow the law from the highest court in the land. And it seems time after time, violating the most basic rules and norms and ethical obligations, or at least ethical obligations that would naturally extend to the rest of us in public office, right? So it's embarrassing. It's obviously embarrassing for the United States Supreme Court. And I think it's a real question about whether he should continue to stay.
Well, what's your answer to the question? I mean, you're a big-time lawyer in addition to a highly profile governor. Should he resign from the Supreme Court?
You know, to me, I think that, it's the first time somebody's asked me that. He's not going to.
Should he?
You would hope that one, when faced with those things, would think long and hard about it. Part of the problem here, Jim, is that they haven't had rules, right? I mean, they haven't had rules, and it's interesting, they enforce the rules, but they play by an entirely different set of rules from everyone else, including other federal judges and state court judges around the country. So, to me, that's absolutely wrong. There needs to be reform there. I would like to see Justice Thomas go for any number of reasons, but certainly the inability to follow basic rules and norms, it's just outrageous. He should go.
He should go.
So
we're talking to the governor of the Commonwealth, who had a number of cases in her former life before that Supreme Court, Maura Healey.
Yeah, Governor Healey, I'll repeat what Jim said just before we get to the calls and the texts. You've been talking a lot about mifepristone. That's the drug that is used, a medication. Abortion's the first drug, and then it goes with misoprostol for the second drug. Well, there's been a lot of confusion about mifepristone with these court decisions. Now, this latest court decision that we have about whether you can use it has restricted its use and said, well, you can still get it, but it can't be delivered by mail, and it can only be used in the first 7 weeks of pregnancy, which is really early. Lots of people don't even know they're pregnant by then. So what does that mean? Does that mean in Massachusetts, if you want to get mifepristone by mail, you can't get it? You have to go to Planned Parenthood? What does that mean here?
No, let me be clear to everybody here. Nothing is changing in Massachusetts. Medication abortion will remain safe, legal, and accessible. We took steps last week because we recognized that a potentially bad decision could be coming down. That's why we worked quickly to stockpile mifepristone, so we have enough supply to make sure that people are covered, women are covered for a long time
2 years worth,
here.
from what I read. Is that correct?
Yeah, and also we talked to a number of our healthcare providers who also were making purchases. So that's important. We have this available, and nothing about what either the district court or the Fifth Circuit has ordered changes anything here in the state. The other thing we did is we issued an executive order because not only was it important to me that we make sure that this medication, and remember, it is medication that the FDA approved 20 years ago that has been the gold standard for care the last 20 years, this medication be available. That's the first priority. The second priority was making sure that providers, doctors, pharmacists, others didn't feel that they were going to be subject to civil or criminal liability or have their licenses taken away or have their malpractice insurance taken away. So, using my executive authority, issued an order clarifying that they are all protected under Massachusetts law and instructing our Department of Public Health and professional licensure to make sure that we are covered with respect to maintaining and continuing both licensing and also insurance coverage here in the state. So that's what Massachusetts has done. I think we've been a national leader in this. I think you'll see more states, and some states have stockpiled, and we will just continue to take whatever steps necessary to make sure that medication abortion is protected and that abortion is protected more generally here in the States.
But I just want to be clear, can you still get mifepristone by mail in Massachusetts, or do you have to go to a clinic and get it?
Well, in Massachusetts, you do see a provider. Some states you're able to go to a pharmacist. In Massachusetts, you do go to a provider, and that will continue to be available. And, you know, that ruling about the mail, I mean, again, that's a Fifth Circuit. We're in the First Circuit. There's a competing case, you know, out of the state of Washington.
Yes.
So, you know, obviously we'll be involved, and I've talked with Attorney General Campbell, and I know she will vigorously defend women's access to reproductive health care in this state and join in those litigations. But I want to be clear about what's happening here on the ground. We have people covered, and we will continue to have people covered, because that's what you have to do. In the face of this continued all-out assault on women in this country, we're a year from Dobbs, where we saw something I think many thought unthinkable, in the overturning of Roe. I think it's just incredibly important that governors around this country be really, really strong and resolute that whatever games are being played, and let's face it, a lot of this is just political expediency and furthered by extremists who see a perceived political gain. There are some, of course, and I understand and respect that, who have a different view about about the issue. But what's happening in the courts, right? That's Donald Trump. That's his appointment. That was the end sought by that. So we need to be really strong about protecting women. We also need to be really strong about protecting LGBTQ kids and people generally, because we see similar efforts to take us backwards by governors in other states. And I've said for a long time, the battle to strip abortion away as a freedom has been waged in the states, and the battle to protect abortion and expand access to reproductive health care will be won in the states, and Massachusetts will lead the way.
That's the voice of Governor Maura Healey, who's here for the hour at the Boston Public Library. Charles and Beverly, you're first up with the governor. Welcome.
Hi there.
Hi.
Governor Healey, thank you, first of all, for taking my call. I live in a medically vulnerable household, and the impending mask mandate is very dangerous for the folks I live with. Paxlovid is losing its with the new variant. When people go to healthcare settings, they often have to take off their masks for certain procedures, and infectious disease certainly congregates in those locations. People like us choose to not eat in restaurants or take public transport, but they can't forego their required medical care. And instituting masks only when community spread is high is not effective means of doing it.
Hey, Charles, I have to interrupt you only to say you have a horrible connection, and we don't want to lose you. So if you could ask your question so that the governor hears it and you don't disappear, it would probably be good for all. What is your question for the governor, please?
My question is what the governor can do to stand up with medically vulnerable people in the face of the mandate dropping, and whether the drop is about money or saving our lives and our health.
Charles, thank you for the call. Sorry, but the connection was not great. Governor.
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for calling. And I'm sorry because I wasn't able to hear all of it.
Yeah.
But certainly, we continue to pay attention to the experts on all of this, including the CDC. And as folks already know, there are particular requirements that the federal government, through the CDC, imposes on healthcare sectors and settings here, even in Massachusetts. So I have a lot of sympathy for someone like Charles who is medically vulnerable. I think that it was right to end the mandate. I stand by that. But certainly we want to make sure that people have access to the protections and the masks and other things that they need as we go forward.
We have somebody here at the library, actually, at the mic, who is smiling broadly. Chris from Cambridge, you're at the Boston Public Library mic with the Governor of the Commonwealth. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you being here. I'm reaching out because kind of on the same thought about the COVID mandate ending, a lot of things that people really love about the kind of few nice things that we got from COVID that are maybe going away. Things like outdoor dining, things like DCR giving access to people all weekend, for example, on Memorial Drive. That's getting scaled back. So as we think about these things that people really love, like 90% of people in Woburn and in Waltham love the outdoor dining. So many people in Cambridge love the recreational space and the space to spread out and access to the parkland and the river. How do you weigh these things that seem to be getting eroded away just because of a few people who don't like them, even though they're consistent with the mission and they're things that we really always needed?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate, thank you for coming here today, Chris, and thank you for the question. I agree that there are any number of innovations that came about because of COVID that are bettering our way of life. We were just talking about healthcare. Think about telehealth. We now have telehealth pretty pervasively, and that's an important innovation and something that should be lasting. Similarly, I think you're pointing to, opportunities that people have had for new ways of experiencing the outdoors and just recreation and important things that contribute to the quality of life. So I'm all for that. I mean, from a state level, I can't control what individual cities or towns want to do around things like outdoor dining. Those are decisions for the local level. Around Memorial Drive, that was interesting. There's actually a law, and what we looked at is that the legislature would have to act in order to continue to make Memorial Drive open on both days. And I know there was some vigorous back and forth, different positions on that in and around the neighborhood and the community in Cambridge. But I am a champion for getting people outdoors. I made heavy investments in our budget for our parks, for recreation, also for the arts and culture, tourism. I mean, these are things that we will benefit from as a society, certainly as a commonwealth, if we take advantage of these things. So thanks for your question.
Chris, thank you very much for the call.
This is a text message from Rosemary. It's about the closing down of the nuclear power plant down in Plymouth. She says the company decommissioning the Plymouth nuclear power plant has applied for a federal waiver discharge permit. The agreement you negotiated, that's you, Governor Healy, she says, negotiated with Holtec, agreed to obey all Massachusetts state law, including no pollution in Cape Cod Bay, a right whale sanctuary. What will you do, Governor Healy, to prevent Holtec from dumping 1 million gallons of radioactive water into Cape Cod Bay?
Thanks, Rosemary. My position continues to be that Holtec should not do dumping. So my position on that hasn't changed.
Are they going to be able to, though? Is there law that's on their side, or court cases that are on their side?
No, we're just getting a look at this right now, but my position remains clear that there shouldn't be that kind of dumping.
And you think we'll be able to prevent it?
That's my goal, absolutely.
Okay.
By the way, that question, it's interesting that was texted in, because when we had the reporter from New England Public Media yesterday as part of Have Your Say Governor Healy's agenda, actually was, I think, Selden Pierce from Plymouth County had the exact same question.
Yeah.
So it's obviously something concerns a lot of people.
Concerns a lot of people in Plymouth County.
Speaking of this project, this Have Your Say Governor Healy's agenda, we learned something yesterday as well about a public state forest moratorium that you had campaigned on that we were embarrassed we knew nothing about. And Chris from Newbury apparently is calling to ask about it. So Chris, welcome to the show. You're on with the governor.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor, for the opportunity to bring this topic up. Yeah, I was inspired by yesterday's show. And, as an environmentalist, as a conservationist, I definitely share the concern and urgency as it relates to climate change. However, I feel, and I think science supports this, that habitat management on state lands is critical for biodiversity, particularly for species requiring successional habitat, for instance. And given the actual land area that we're talking about, I think that the benefit for some forestry management would be more significant than what we might get out of it for carbon sequestration. And I was kind of surprised to learn that that Massachusetts is actually 8th in the country for forest cover. Over 62% of the state is covered in forest. And when I think about state agencies like Mass Wildlife and the 220,000 acres that they manage, I think it's critical that these lands have the ability, or these land stewards have the ability to do work on behalf of these species, whether they be endangered, threatened, or even more common ones.
Chris, is the question, what is she going to do?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that biodiversity is factored into her climate action plan, and yeah.
Could you do us a favor? Could you give us 30 seconds of background on this for those who are new to this issue?
Dispute. I don't understand it well enough, right?
Yeah, could you give us a little explanation and then respond to Chris, if you would, Governor, please?
Sure. And Chris, great to hear from you. So a little bit of background is that years ago, there was cutting of some of the forests and state land, and there's a lot of controversy about that and how much should be cut. And then eventually there was sort of a moratorium put in place that has been in place that prohibits that kind of cutting right now. I'll say a couple things. First off, Chris is right. Over 60% of our land is covered by forest here in Massachusetts, 8th in the nation.
60% of the land?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Look at the map, though. I mean, if you look at the map, you can see there's a lot of land. I mean, we're a highly concentrated, dense area here in Greater Boston, but that's a good thing. Why? Because forests are really important to helping us address climate change. What they do in terms of us helping to capture carbon and decarbonize our climate is really important. So my view is we should be finding ways to support that. It's also the case that there are things that need to happen within a forest. Chris mentions preservation of species and biodiversity and a habitat, and and I know that that is important. Also, there are instances around safety, fire mitigation and the like. That's important. At some of our campgrounds, we don't want trees falling on actual camping spots and injuring people, right? So there are some things we need to do here, but I think there's been a rigorous and robust discussion, debate, I'd say, over the last few years about what a forest management plan should look like. So here's what I offer. I think we ought to bring together, and we will, through my Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, we'll bring together a group in short order to sit and listen to experts, to have public discussion and hearings on this, and to come out with a forest management plan that makes sense.
Chris, thank you for your call, and Governor Healy, thanks for the response. 877-301-8970 is the number. The governor is with us till about 1:58, so if you want to give her a buzz or text her, you can do it at that number.
We've got a text from Paul from Worcester, wants to know about the governor's new DCR commissioner. Will that person be clarifying the policy on open water swimming at DCR locations? Currently, Walden Pond is the only freshwater body designated as safe for open water swimming.
Well, Paul, we will put that on Commissioner Arrigo's list. As some may know, I was able to hire the former Revere Mayor, Brian Arrigo, as the commissioner of DCR. Really excited about what he is going to do. DCR is a really important agency. We were just talking about some of the forests it maintains, parklands, golf courses, rinks and gyms and the like. So a lot of important work that DCR does, and we'll put that on the list, Paul.
I was going to say, speaking of DCR, I forgot about this. I should have mentioned this before. We were at Mel King's service the other day, amazing service, where so many people get up and talked about his impact in his life. But
including you.
Including the governor, that's right.
Did, yeah.
Who had a great line, what would Mel King do? I really liked that line, because he never sold out. He was true to his principles right to the end. But in any case, Reverend Culpepper, who's a member of this fraternity, this men's fraternity that apparently Mel King was involved in for years, talked about how Mel would want to go over to Carson Beach in South Boston when they were young, because you really couldn't go to South Boston if you were black when you were young, and Carson Beach is a DCR beach. And Culpepper said that he would begrudgingly go because he didn't want to get hit with stones and rocks and all that. And that someone had mentioned turning Columbus Avenue, you probably heard this, into Mel King Avenue. And Culpepper said, forget that. What I'd like to do is see Carson Beach become Mel King Beach.
A lot of applause when he said that.
A lot of applause. So what do you think about that idea?
I think it's something to think about. I appreciated that he raised it. He sort of put me in the mayor. We were sitting next to one another at what was a really beautiful service, wasn't it, the other day? And Mel King, all that he did, all that he continues to do through the legacy of his work, his impact is so huge. In a time when we've made housing a priority in my administration.
Yes.
I just think about the many things he championed, housing for people. But interesting, that was an interesting moment when he and I love Irvin Culpepper, so he put it to the mayor and me to think about renaming some of these entities that either the city or the state has charge of, and I'll take a look at. I'll learn more.
Well, it's a great symbol, right? That the place there was so much racial strife for so many years becomes named in honor of a person that was fighting for good race relations in Boston. I thought it was kind of a neat idea.
Governor Healy, before we take a break, or one break, are you as governor are you the head of the Mass Air National Guard? Is that one of your deals? Or you
Yes.
are. So do you have any information that you can share with us that we don't have about this 21-year-old guy who's accused of this historic leak?
I think I'm. Well, let me say this: it's incredibly disturbing what was revealed. This is a man from Dighton who was on federal orders, conducting a federal mission. He was extensively vetted by all accounts, as all service members are who are cleared for this level of work. We're obviously in dialogue with the FBI, and we'll provide any support we can to them as they conduct this investigation and pursue this case.
Fair enough. We're going to take a break.
We are talking with Governor Maura Healey. She's here with us to the top of the hour for Ask the Governor, where you can submit your texts or your questions to her at 877-301-8970. Quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library And we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
The COVID emergencies are ending. Masks are often considered a thing of the past. The world seems to be moving on from the pandemic. But there is deep frustration growing among people with long COVID at the lack of progress treating the condition.
We were injured by this virus, and so patients are losing hope. We feel swept under the rug.
That story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you and Earth Day Boston, offering events throughout April. You can browse their events page and learn how to reduce your carbon footprint, shift to a plant-based diet, and help address the climate crisis at earthdayboston.org. And Celebrity Series of Boston. The Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater returns with groundbreaking choreography that reminds us how the power of dance can help bring people together. May 4th through 7th at the Wang Theater. Tickets at celebrityseries.org. And the Chevalier Theater in Medford Square, presenting the Wait, Wait stand-up show, featuring select comedians from NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, Friday, April 28th. Tickets and info available at chevaliertheater.com. And Cabot Corporation, proud to sponsor GBH and the Boston Speakers Series. Cabot is committed to fostering an inclusive workplace where all employees can contribute. Learn more at cabotcorp.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge Regan, live at the Boston Public Library. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. In addition, we're broadcasting on our usual GBH 89.7 FM Boston. We're also live on CAI on Cape Cod and on the website of New England Public Media in Springfield. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with the governor for Ask the Governor, a special 100-day edition as part of GBH, CAI, and NEPM's collaborative reporting effort. Have your say, Governor Healy's agenda. If you want to reach the governor by text or email, it's 877-301-8970.
We have a text from Rebecca, who's out there somewhere in the Boston Public Library. I don't know if Rebecca
Hi,
is
Rebecca,
still
wherever
there.
you are, yeah.
But anyway, she just sent a
Hi,
text a
Rebecca.
little while ago saying, it is so hot in here. I'm seeing two of Governor Healy, but nonetheless, I couldn't think of a better way to spend my 30th birthday. Thank you, Governor.
Happy birthday.
Successful to
Happy
us
birthday.
On PPR each month. We're sorry
Happy
about
birthday.
it, too. You're not supposed to say you're sweating, but I am perspiring. Let's put it that.
Governors can't sweat. That's the problem. We're
Ruining
allowed
my
to.
makeup.
Hey, Governor. Governor, can we talk a little bit about budget stuff for a second? You were diplomatic when you were asked if you were okay with the changes in this $1 billion tax package that was released by the House. After you had released the $1 billion tax package, you wanted to look at it. You said all the things I know you have to say. Here's the thing, though, that really bothered me. One of the things you proposed, which I think is probably, I haven't seen polling, but I would guess wildly popular, is the $600 credit for child and dependent care. Credit means you get the actual cash. It's not a deduction where you get a piece $600. You get $600. The difference, they're adopting your notion, but they're phasing it in over 3 years. And I have to say, as someone who takes calls all the time about, including yesterday, about dependent care crises, child care, both yesterday, child care crises, what's your take on this 3-year phase-in rather than just doing the damn thing when the budget's approved?
Well, I guess I'll say a couple things. One, I was glad to see that they included it.
They did.
And as a general matter, I was really pleased to see that a lot of what we put forward in our tax relief package is included, and a lot of the investments we proposed in our budget are included. And, this is a process, as we know. Over the next weeks and months, there'll be discussions and further work. The Senate will also have its budget. But, I think what's important for people to know is that as governor, the team and I are going to stay in dialogue with the legislature, understand where they're coming from with respect to how they fashion things. And, I'm looking forward to that discussion because I think, people do need relief. They do need help. We do need the investments also that I think you see in both budgets. I've said from the beginning that I'm really focused on 3 things: affordability, competitiveness, and equity. And both in the tax package and in the budget this week, I see a lot reflected in that is where I am as well. So it's obviously a process. I didn't expect to see exactly everything the same way that I had proposed, but I think that's what this process and this time is for.
Go ahead, Marjorie. I'm sorry.
One other thing that came out when we were talking to the reporters from CAI and the Cape and New England Public Media in Springfield is, as Jim mentioned, the whole housing thing is huge. I thought the Globe had a rather interesting editorial a few days ago where they talked about how we somewhere along the line transferred the power to make these housing and zoning decisions from the state to the towns, and then it went back to the towns, or it's with the towns right now. And their theory was to avoid this not in my backyard kind of syndrome that we're seeing about affordable housing, or at least, and more dense housing, that maybe the state should take that back. And I thought that, would you have any interest in taking over the housing decisions from the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts?
Well, it's an interesting idea, but I can't wait to discuss or debate or see that process through. I mean, the fact of the matter is we've got 351 cities and towns out there, and we need them, Marjorie. And here's what is good about a few things. Yesterday, the legislature passed a bill that I filed to create a housing secretary, a secretary of housing and livable communities. This is super important. I mean, housing is a top priority for us. We've got to really increase housing around the state for affordable housing, for market rate housing. You know, anyone out there, right? Rents right now, mortgages right now, people can't afford to downsize right now. And this isn't just an issue in Greater Boston, it's an issue across the state. And it goes directly to our competitiveness. You've heard me talk about this. 100,000 people left the state in the last couple of years. And if you talk to a lot of people, including people now who are trying to make that calculus, the cost of housing is a huge issue. We're going to have tens of thousands of students graduate here in a couple months' time. We want them to stay in Massachusetts. Finding affordable housing is key to that. So that's the good news. Now we've got a housing secretary in place. We can target and prioritize production. We are going to have to work with developers and communities on this. I want to applaud Lexington, for example, who the other day in town meeting voted to exceed what they were required to do under the law when it comes to housing production. We are going to rise and fall as a Commonwealth together, and we have to see our destinies as inextricably tied. We need to create more housing. That includes denser housing in communities across the state.
Can I ask you two more very quick budget questions, then we'll get back to the Coles?
I'm just very passionate about housing because it's like the thing, right? It is like it is so important, and we've got to find a way.
And there's no stock for people who can afford to move here.
And an issue why we have the shelter situation right now. We have many people in shelter right now who simply don't have a place to go. There isn't a physical apartment or house for them to go to.
You'll be happy to hear, not surprised, that the number one issue in this statewide effort of getting questions to you was housing. Two things. The Globe feels the need to write a story every day quoting 42 accountants who say their rich clients are moving to Florida and New Hampshire tomorrow. Do you know any wealthy people who, since the millionaire's tax passed, who have given up their domicile here and set up a house in Florida or New Hampshire?
I do.
How many?
Many.
Many?
There are many, and
what's many? I'm sorry, but what is many?
Well, there are a number, and look, I come to this, and Jim, I'm a progressive, all right, but I'm going to be. I also, I have to be straightforward and a realist about what's actually happening on the ground here in Massachusetts, and for me, it's concerning to see people leave. It's concerning to see people leave because they're not the super wealthy. I mean, these issues, these decisions, the things I'm talking about, you're making $80,000 a year. I don't want the solution to be for you to move to New Hampshire. And I think if you have
that's not a rich person. I'm talking about rich people. I don't mean
I am talking about the entire dynamic. If we've got 100,000 people in the last couple of years out migration, we have got to fight those headwinds here. And that's why I'm so prioritizing driving down the cost of housing, of childcare, also celebrating who Massachusetts is in this time. When reproductive freedom is on the line, when LGBTQ equality is on the line, we are going to be a state that continues to support those things. We're also, our calling card around, a knowledge-based economy. We attract some of the brightest minds and innovators and entrepreneurs in the world. We've got an opportunity. We need to harness all of that. So, I've really looked. Well, I'm around the state all the time, and I'm listening to people, and so that stuff is real. I understand it's easy to sort of say, oh, that's for a limited number of rich people. And, at the end of the day, it may calc out that way in terms of who's actually affected by something like the surtax. But what is also happening, though, are the decisions that people are making right now, including with your home. Look at the way home values have appreciated. People are sitting on properties right now, and they don't want to see all of that lost for the sake of their kids and their grandkids. And that's why I also thought it really important to raise the threshold before the estate tax kicks in. So, I say this really thinking about a whole range of people out there.
One last budget question, and since you called yourself progressive, it's perfect. Every study that I've ever seen dating to one that the late Tom Birmingham did in the state Senate a couple of decades ago shows that the lottery is played overwhelmingly by very poor people. That people in Chelsea who make about 1/20th of what a person in Weston makes spend about 10 times more, if not more, on the lottery than people in Weston. There's a proposal in the House budget to allow the lottery to go online, which to me just means that poor people will lose more money on their couches as opposed to going to their 7-Eleven. Do you support putting the lottery online?
You're going to be shocked to hear this, Jim, but I do.
Why?
Let me tell you how I get there. And you're right. You and I have had a lot of conversations about gambling, about casinos over the years. But here's what's happened. We have casinos in the state. We also have DraftKings here in the state. And a lot of money is being spent there by a lot of people. And what we also have is a lottery system that right now isn't able to compete against a DraftKings. And nothing against DraftKings, but the lottery, that's money coming back to cities and towns. The money spent on DraftKings is going to DraftKings. And so, how do you make sure if people are going to choose and select where they play? Other states have moved to online lottery. And I say this as somebody who really was skeptical about the whole thing. But I think it's important for us to catch up there and meet people where they are. And
you doing sports betting?
That's why I support the treasurer.
You done any sports betting yet?
No.
That was a long but yeah?
No, I haven't done any sports.
Okay.
Oh
God!
I mean, no, I'm not against it. It's just I've been busy. I don't know enough to make an informed a bet. My brackets for the NCAA's were busted like on the first day. So
but how about those young women from Louisiana and Iowa? They were something to watch as a former basketball player.
Oh, the whole tournament,
and the women got huge viewership too.
Yeah, they did, and. There were more in the arena. There was something that the women outdid the men in something else. I can't remember. But great to see the evolution of the game and super, super exciting.
Some guy who's head of the NCAA said he thinks they should have their own contract because they're doing so well, whoever he is. Kathleen from Wareham texts.
And he said, I did see Governor Baker the other day. And as you can imagine, we talked a lot about March Madness. But I appreciated, because I was watching TV one morning and I see him calling in. He's on the national television, but he was at a women's game. So I gave him. I was good for you. Yeah, at the women's game.
Kathleen from Wareham text, please address the Cape Cod bridges mess, present and future, Governor.
Yeah, well, this is something that we are very focused on as a team. As folks may know, we find ourselves in an unusual situation in Massachusetts. The federal government owns 2 bridges in our state. This is an unusual situation. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they own the Sagamore and the Bourne Bridge. They have had responsibility for maintaining the condition of those bridges. As we have come to learn, the bridges are in a really sorry state of disrepair. We need those bridges replaced. I have spoken directly to the Biden administration at all levels and working vigorously with our congressional delegation to ask them for money to allow us to have new bridges. It is unacceptable to repair them. That is not the solution. They need to be replaced. I put forward in my budget money towards this. It's in our capital budget. But at the end of the day, this has been and remains a federal responsibility. The Biden administration, which just put $350 million recently in the budget towards this, needs to step up and do much more. And we continue to be in dialogue with them about how we can get there, but it's very, very important to me.
Let's go to Margaret Newton. You're on with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Welcome, Margaret.
you. I'm delighted, Governor Healy, to have you in office because I count on your empathy in transforming nursing homes. And since you're interested in equity, and it's one of your big things, and you had a great record as an AG in raising penalties for some of these bad actors. Okay, right now, an omnibus bill and many other bills supported by Dignity Alliance Massachusetts are in front of the legislature. So I guess on behalf of all of us at Dignity Alliance, I'd like to ask you, can you promote this, use your bully pulpit, and would you consider making Elder Affairs report to you? And I say this because almost a quarter of all deaths in Massachusetts occurred in nursing homes.
Margaret, thanks. Oh, sorry.
That's the question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret, for the call. And let me promise you this, Margaret. I'll make sure that I look at and my team looks at all legislation related to nursing homes and issues that impact an aging demographic here in the state. So I can't speak exactly to what you're referring to because I don't know particularly what legislation exactly you're referring to, but know that I'm committed to making sure we take a hard look at that and find ways to support, as I say, an aging demographic. In our nursing homes right now, we've got serious issues when it comes to workforce. We've had nursing homes closed. We've had threatened closures at some places, and this is just so tough for families, so tough for families. My Health and Human Services team has been engaged directly with community, with the homes, with some of our legislative colleagues as we try to work through this. But Margaret, you absolutely have my commitment to that. And in terms of elevating it or renaming it within an administration, right now I'm focused on making sure that HHS, led by the incredibly capable Kate Walsh, she's our Secretary of Health and Human Services, former head of Boston Medical Center, the team is on it.
Are you boiling?
Boiling?
Are you hot?
It's warm. It's cozy.
Just asking.
It's cozy in here.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a question from Maddie in the BPL library at the home. You might go ahead, Maddie.
Hey, Maddie.
On with the governor. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. As an LGBTQ person, it is an inspiration to have you in office. But with the recent Missouri AG ban of trans-affirming medical care, what are you doing to enshrine medical care rights further in law in Massachusetts?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the question, Maddie. And this is something that has been both a professional commitment of mine as well as a personal commitment of mine for a long time now, going back to the days when I ran the Civil Rights Division in the Attorney General's office. We are going to continue to find ways to support our trans community here in Massachusetts. And I think in the face of states and governors signing laws that are so dehumanizing and degrading, we are just going to be super strong. I recently announced the appointment of Robbie Goldstein as our new commissioner for the Department of Public Health. Dr. Goldstein, among other things, he returns from D.C., where he was recently at the CDC. But prior to that, as folks may know, he was a wonderful practitioner here in Boston and, in fact, led a number of efforts related to gender-affirming care and other things that will make our healthcare system more equitable. So you'll have a great partner in him. You'll have a great partner in our administration. And we are just going to continue to look for ways not only to protect, but to expand through education, through awareness, through resources. And this is an issue not limited to healthcare. It also speaks to needs around housing, around jobs, making sure that people are able to live full, wonderful lives.
Maddie, thanks for the question. We really appreciate it.
We have a call from Mara, who is a physician. Mara, thanks for calling. You're on with Governor Healy.
Hi, Mara.
Hello, yes, my name is Laura.
Sorry.
That happens to me all the time. Usually I get called Laura.
No, not at all. Thank you. Really appreciate your commitment to equity. We've been hearing concerns from within the healthcare system, however, about conflicts of interest, which might be influencing the way that hospitals and nursing homes have been pressuring mass CPH decisions to try and stop preventing healthcare-associated COVID infections by ending mask requirements on surveillance testing in healthcare. Last week, the Globe wrote that hospital infection administrators have been lobbying to remove infection protections, and nursing homes, I'm also aware, have lobbied the state state to end COVID testing for staff, in spite of the fact that there was that recent nursing home outbreak in Yarmouth, which killed 4 residents. Given your commitment to elders, to equity, we're really grateful to have you in office, and we'd really like to see if your office is planning to look into these concerns about conflict of interest. Hospitals have also expressed, concerns that they're losing money when procedures are canceled because patients test positive for COVID. We'd really like to know whether the hospitals are more concerned about protecting elders and the most vulnerable who can still die from COVID despite having access to all the tools, or whether it's about the money.
Laura, we got it. Thank you so much. Governor.
Thanks for the question, Laura. And, I guess I'd say a couple things. One, I'm not going to be pressured or bullied by anybody or any entity or any organization. So rest assured, and we are going to try to make decisions that really are in the best interest, looking at the facts, looking at the science, following the data. So I can't say specifically, I don't know if there was a question specific to particular actions right now, but know that's just going to be our North Star on this. I also will say that we've got workforce challenges around the state, big time workforce challenges, and certainly the healthcare industry has been particularly hard hit through COVID, and we've got to do everything we can. We'll talk about some of our support for career training, for community college and the like, even through the high school level. But part of that effort is how do we grow a workforce that we need at this time, and that includes workers who will work in nursing homes as well as in hospital settings.
So I think there's a mandatory question that unfortunately I have to ask because tomorrow's 100 days. So, Governor Healy, how do you reflect? I think this is in our contract. Seriously, how do you reflect on your performance and the whole deal in your first 100 days, which is sort of the informal, you-know-what threshold that every new office holder is confronted about? So I'm not going to ask you to grade yourself, so don't get nervous.
All right.
So what are your reflections on 99 days in office?
It's been fast and furious, as it needs to be given the urgency of the time and the challenges that we face. I feel really good, though, about the last 100 days. We've been able to make a lot of progress on a lot of fronts. I think we were able to put together a really stellar cabinet, people who are totally talented and dedicated to the public interest, who understand teamwork and the need to work together within an administration and with partners within government and, importantly, outside of government. We also were able to put together, I think, a really good tax relief package as well as a budget that I think meets the moment in terms of the investments that we need to make. Already, we've been able to secure a supplemental budget, funding to make sure that we continue universal school meals through the end of the year, funding to make sure that the federal government, while it's cutting off SNAP benefits, we were going to find a way to cover some of our most vulnerable here, funding for housing as well. These are things that we did already, accomplishing a new housing secretary, setting up the country's first climate chief to make sure that we're driving a climate agenda across the whole of government. Appointing the first Secretary of Veteran Services. We were able to do that. And just generally speaking, building out a team. I mean, I look at what the work that our Energy and Environmental Affairs Agency is doing, just them alone, creating for the first time an office on environmental equity and justice, creating a position where somebody's going to be in charge of convening the states in the region and the federal entities so that we have a really strategic approach to how we're going to do energy and move away from renewables, move towards renewables in the coming years. So, these are some of the things that I'm really proud of. Putting forward a plan that will provide that credit, that tax credit, importantly, to families around the state, $600 for every child under 13 and every dependent in your home. Proposing a program that I was happy to see the House put in its budget, Mass Reconnect. This is an opportunity to provide community college free to anyone 25 years or older, to get them back and get them trained up and get them out into the workforce. So a lot of exciting work, a lot of work to do. We just announced the other day the state's most historically diverse judicial nominating commission in history. So I'm really pleased about the fact that soon we'll be able to appoint judges. So a lot of great work. I just came, actually, there was a great event, speaking of Mel King You would have liked this. There was a great event just now at the State House celebrating Black excellence in the Commonwealth. We've got the National NAACP Convention coming here this summer. And at this convening just now at the State House, it was great to be able to talk about our work, including the fact that I've met with and convened a council on Black empowerment, a council on Latino empowerment. And so, I'm just excited by the work we've been able to do. There is so much work to do, and so I appreciate you giving me, even if it's sort of obligatory, a couple minutes to reflect on the last 100 days, but know that I am really focused on the next 100 days and what we need to do.
What's the most confounding thing? That's something you really care about that is sort of intractable in 100 days. Is there something that you feel a little frustrated about, that you're not quite sure how to confront? You know what I mean?
I do, and I'm not going to say the T, because I think we're on a path. We have a really, really terrific general manager. I think for the first time in 8 years, we have a general manager at the T who actually has transportation experience. He's terrific, Phil Ang. And if you didn't see him yesterday, he's been on buses, he's been on trains. There was a great picture of him yesterday. He was on a ferry. He is super hands-on, an engineer by training, and he loves the workforce. And part of this is workforce morale, as we try to recruit 700 or 800 positions there. So there's ongoing work with the T, but I will tell you that something that is particularly challenging right now is what's happening with our emergency shelter situation. We have, and this is tough.
We only have about 45 seconds.
Okay, well, bottom line, Massachusetts has a law that if you come here, we'll give you shelter, and that can be housing, it can be education for your kids. And the numbers right now who are coming in, the system, it's not sustainable. We're paying a lot of money to house people in hotels and motels, and it's become very, very challenging. So in the immediate moment, that to me, Jim, is among the most confounding issues.
Happy 100 tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you all for joining us.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Happy Patriots Day weekend. Remember, we're Bedrock. We're where it all began.
That's right.
This is why people should come to and stay in and grow old in Massachusetts. We love Massachusetts. And everybody stay safe out there over the marathon. Hydrate, runners out there.
That's right.
We look forward to a great day. It will not be 90 degrees.
Thank God.
So that's good. And many thanks to all the first responders, volunteers, and all who work so incredibly hard to put on what is a fabulous, fabulous show for the city of Boston and for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
And you know what? We have a pledge to you. Next time you come back, we'll have the air conditioning working. So it'll be...
Hey, the State House is 100 right now, so this is cooler than what I'm going back to.
Thank you very much, Governor Healy, for being with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks to the people who came down to the Boston Public Library.
And happy birthday, Rebecca.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Rebecca.
On Monday, we're going to be joined by the NAACP's Michael Curry, Charlie Sennett from the Ground Truth Project, joining us from Belfast, 2018 Boston Marathon champion Des Linden, the Reverend Zion Monroe and Emmett Price, and PBS travel guru Rick Steves. Thanks to Zoe Matthews, Aidan Comley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer John the Claw Parker, our executive producer Jane Bologna, our BPL team Sai Patel, Annie Schreffler, Evelyn Brito, Brad Lewis, and Angelica Marrero. I'm Marjorie Egan.
To Lee Hill for getting the air conditioning on.
That's right.
We'll
Thanks
see you
to
on
Lee
Monday.
Hill.
Thank you, everybody. Be well.
See you later.